Hello, mover.
They just crashed.
What?
They just crashed.
Did you see a blue car? What happened?
Dude, I'm watching the end of the Daytona 500. It's the worst possible timing. Hello.
Hi.
It's the Mover and Gonky show with Mace.
Hello, Mace.
Friend of the channel, Mace Curran. She is the author of Upside Down Dreams. Point to it. Can you?
Oh, high pressure.
Yes.
There we go.
Look.
He has. She's given Gonky a run for his money with that's a children's book, right?
It is, yeah.
Like
No words?
Oh, no, it has words, but it has pictures. Lots of pictures.
Yeah, Gonky just does coloring books.
Yeah.
Also,
for children, not Marines.
A new book called "What's Your Call Sign?" What's that about?
Yeah, so it's a sequel, I guess, to this one. So character in this one is a little girl who wants to be a fighter pilot. Her name's Lily. And then she comes back with this story, and her grandpa, who's a former fighter pilot, is the main character in the first book. And in the second book, What's Your Call Sign? She makes a mistake at school, does something embarrassing, and she earns a nickname from it that she doesn't want. And she's super sad about it. And then her grandpa hears about it and starts telling her about fighter pilot call signs. And how you get them based on something dumb you did, but you embrace it. And so it's kind of like a lesson around, overcoming failure and how you view it. But it's all centered around aviation, fighter pilot culture. I'm excited. It comes out in May.
That's right around the corner. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It is. Yeah, I should probably be promoting it.
The
Please
movie
pre-order
writer.
We just did.
Yeah, we just did. We'll put
We
the
just
link
did.
in probably some level of description for all these things, but that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yes, that's
Thanks.
awesome.
It's fun.
And this is like a big book deal, right? You're it's multiple. I think I saw you posted this on one of the social media things, right? This is like a publisher.
A bit going on. Yeah. So this is the one that you see behind me is the first of 3 books. So 3-book series. One will come out each spring through next year. That's with a publisher called Endgame Press. They've been awesome. I wrote this manuscript in 2019, so it took a minute to get here. And then I also have an adult book. I don't think that's the right phrase to use for it. A book for adults that I just finished writing. That's in the editing process. No, I know everyone's like, I always say that. I have a kid's book and then I have an adult book, and then they all stare at me awkwardly, and I'm like, it's like a personal development self-help book for adults.
Just DM Mover.
Yeah. Just, hey, put on my robe and wizard hat.
Your books are adult books.
That's valid.
See?
Valid.
You wouldn't call them children's books.
Yeah. They say write what you know, so I don't write any sex scenes. So it's all PG rated. Anyway, off the rails. Thanks for showing up. Hockey, how was your weekend? Did you do anything
good?
fun?
Kind of quiet. No, I just hung around a little bit. I had a bit of a head cold this morning. I was supposed to go to Little Rock, home of the United States Air Force C-130 school, and I did not go. I couldn't clear my ears, so
it's a sign of things to come.
Maybe. So I took a couple of naps today, and we just kind of worked around the house. With 2 kids, you gotta get some rest when you can.
Okay. All right.
How about you? Didn't you like do another lap around the?
I did. I got old. I ordered cheese fries. They didn't give me any ranch. Pretty upset about this. Like the one ingredient. But yeah, we're older now, and here we are. Doug, you doing okay, man?
So far, so good.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's talk about the Daytona 500 just finished, by the way. So very excited about that. But Mace, you were a Thunderbird. Or is it like a Marine, once a Thunderbird, always a Thunderbird?
They do say that. Yeah, they do.
So you're
former? I was former. Yeah.
Former. Okay. So the Thunderbirds have done back-to-back weekends, and I'm glad you're on because I wanted to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I've got video that we can review. First, starting with the Super Bowl, there was there's a video from like a roof with a light gun. And maybe you can tell me what that means, because I don't know. We've never been fancy enough. I've done quite a few NASCAR flyovers, but never fancy enough for this. So this is over at the Super Bowl in Vegas, and you've got these dudes are high speed.
Whoa.
Yeah, look at that, dude. You ever seen that before, Gonky?
No, that's not the equipment we had in the Navy for flying.
But wait, there's more. First, who are these people?
Dream.
Like, do y'all just have extra Thunderbirds hanging around?
Yeah, well, it turns out there's 130 people on the team.
Wow.
This is 7 and 8. They're both F-16 pilots. You know, they do the FAM flights. They put the people in the back seat. They fly to the show sites early. So they're both qualified pilots, but they do all of this coordination type stuff as well.
And they're on the roof of the stadium. Is this where we're at? Like, oh yeah. Okay. What's this guy right here?
That's the flight doc usually does that job. That's what we call shine. So it helps the boss visually pick up this aim point. So at air shows, we'll use it on show center. Like even over water shows, they'll put the light gun out on a boat.
Triple A.
You'd think a giant stadium would be easy to see, but at that low graze angle coming in, 500 to 1,000 feet with the strip between them and the stadium, it's actually really hard to line up on.
Yeah. Well, my old squadron flew over the wrong stadium.
See, it can happen. It's like, yeah.
Well,
I mean, you lose stuff in ground clutter.
In fairness, they built a new one right next to the old one, and they flew over the old one. So all the people in the back bleachers were like, oh, yeah, that's a good flyover. They were on time. And this is old Reba. Was this the one?
Hey, here they go.
So were they late?
I believe that, so if you can't hear it in this video because the jet noise drowns it out, and whoever's filming, I don't know what happens there. They got very excited. So Reba did the home of the Brave and then the Brave, and she like carried it out. But the B in Brave the first time is when all the fireworks went off. And then the second Brave, which is what they're aiming for timing wise, the jets were right overhead. So I think that was on time. It's not standard to have the Brave twice. I think they did that to deconflict from the fireworks. I'm gonna give them that one on time.
Yeah, this one today. So this is the one today, and I'm gonna start it like in the middle because I feel like Fox is gonna come after me if I don't. So this is the coverage from network TV, and it's the 82nd Airborne that is doing the singing, which every one of these things is not like the other. I don't know why the one person didn't want to wear the uniform of the day, but here we go.
Oh boy. We're canceled.
Send all hate mail to Gonky at trevorhartsock.com. Rod Hartstock. Yeah. So they're smoking pretty far out.
Yeah, usually at least like between 5 and 10 miles out.
Too long. Nope.
Oops.
You guys suck.
Dude, I don't know.
It's these people. You didn't have to sing it like that. Sing it like a normal person.
I'm definitely curious what happened there between the practice that they did and the pauses we just heard.
Yeah, Mace, because you guys, when you practice, you time them.
Yeah.
And then you establish the fact with them. Listen, you guys sing at the right cadence because we're going to come back and do this again. It has to be right.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the train is coming down the tracks when the national anthem is starting. Like, you don't have a lot of ability to adjust timing halfway through this because it's such a short song. So you don't have that much time. And the hold is like 20 to 30 miles away. The jets are coming in at 400 knots. You got to have time to get the formation joined up and get the smoke on. And we did several big profile or high profile flyovers when I was on the team. My first show season actually mirrored this. My first event ever was the Super Bowl. And then a week later we did Daytona. And then right after that, we did the Captain Marvel premiere flyover in LA.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just like, this is what it's like to be a Thunderbird. This is pretty epic. And then next, we're in like Minot. So everyone who's on their second year was like, do not get used to this. This is not what you normally get to do. Because those experiences are just really cool. But we had ones where it was like on time, on time, shack, which means you nailed it. Yeah. We had other ones where it was like, boss, pull it back. Boss, pull it back. You're 5 seconds early. And we're like approaching the track as that's happening because something had shifted in the timing. And the boss will say, a little power back. But if he like ripped his throttle back, the formation would just be like, pfft. So you can't correct a lot.
No. Being the only guy here who has not flown the Viper, I imagine the airplane has a timing system in it, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Was it customary for everybody to have the timing set up in their jet to back up the boss or not?
It was,
okay.
Especially number 4, since he's the slot pilot, because he's looking forward and he can actually glance down at it. Once you're on the wing and you're into formation, you can't look at it anymore. The Viper's just so twitchy that you're like, every ounce of you is focused on trying to stay in position. And you're like, please let me be in formation when we pass over that split second.
Would it show any care or anything in the HUD as far as like, ahead of schedule, behind schedule?
Yeah, the problem is that the TOT shifts, right? Because we have the TOT set, or like, okay, the jets are going to be overhead at what time did the race start today? 4 p.m.
Right.
Like 4 p.m. on the dot, the jets should be overhead if everything's on time. And so they push to make that. And then the jets are 10 seconds out. And all of a sudden they're like, the new TOT is 4:05. And you're like,
Right. Okay. I just curious if you had help.
No, and we do. And that's what makes most of the flyovers on time, right? Is the turn and the hold and looking at the airspeed and the TOT and everything and having all those avionics to help you. But when the TOT moves in the short hairs, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. And so I feel bad for the team because I remember the first flyover I did for the Super Bowl, we were right on time, but the blimp was airborne and we made this right turn afterwards. And I was far left wing and I was brand new to the team and I got hubcapped a little bit, not a ton. I mean, you probably find a video of it. To me, I was just like, and the blimp followed on TV, like zoomed in on the Delta, making this epic turn. And it was like starting to get dark and we're lit up. And it looked so cool. And then there's me, number 6, like, boop, and I'm like, no. And so all night I got to go to the Super Bowl and like be in the suites and be on the field when the confetti was falling. And I just kept thinking about how I was out of position on national television in front of 100 million people. So it sucks when it ruins like a once in a lifetime experience for you.
Nobody but other fighter pilots noticed. Trust me.
No, I know.
No, the actual Facebook group OFP is all they talk about is whether you were perfectly. Anyway, here comes the hate mail.
Yeah.
So I have a question though. Did you guys do any of like the stupid pet tricks of staging the burner, going boards out, or is it always just a clean professional? Like, was there ever like we got to make more noise? Use burner?
Not for the Delta flyovers because trying to stay in formation that tight with 6 jets with the burner lit would be a nightmare. When we redid the show in 2020, the Diamond added a burner pass and they come from behind the crowd now during the air show in full AB and it's epic, but they're in like a root formation, a very loose formation. They are not in fingertip. Being in fingertip in afterburner with 6 jets would be a disaster. Dude, the burners just light at different times and
I know. Gonky knows too.
You have a story.
Mr. Recommend no burner.
Hey, I was just trying to save the formation, dude. Don't make me get us fired on live.
There's not one story. There's so many stories of being either as 3 or 4 or 4 is the worst, but because you're at the tail end of the whip. But being in a formation and the guy's like, all right, burners now. And you're like, dude, we're about to get over the stadium. Why are we doing this now? Because that's when the burners all decide to light at different times.
Yep.
And the jets start looking like this.
Yep.
And it just doesn't work out. No, the story we were talking about pre-show, which I've told on this channel a lot, but you might appreciate it. The national anthem's what, a minute 28, minute 24, depending on who's singing it.
Yeah, it's around a minute and a half, something like that.
Yeah. So I remember, like you talked about, I was doing the Dover flyover, and it was one of those things. It was the end of the fiscal year, so it was probably a bad time to be doing a flyover in the first place. We were going to send 4. We could only get 2 airborne out of Homestead to do the cross country. So we took 2 over there. And when we landed at Dover, my wingman had an anti-skid problem and his jet was hard broke. So it was a single ship flyover, which was the first problem. And I'm holding out there and they're like, minute 28, minute 28. It's always going to be a minute 28. And he goes, okay, she's starting early. Like instead of like getting up there and waiting, she just started singing like as she's walking up on stage. And I'm like, oh boy. And he's like, she's singing fast. You got to go. You got to go. And I'm in full burner at, a speed I will not say, but I zipped over the field and everybody's like, was that the flyover? Is a single ship Viper doing, 5 bills looks like nothing. It just looks like a jet to just zoop. And I turned around and I was like, oh, I'll turn back. The field is right by the stadium or the track. So I'm going to go back around. And then when I went back around, I hit a bird off the canopy and we got stuck in Dover for 2 weeks because we ran out of money to send a maintenance crew up for the end of the fiscal year. And so it was pretty bad. What is this, Doug? What are we sitting? What are you showing me?
Perfect storm.
That was an error.
That was your flyover.
No, that was too many jets. It is on YouTube. But no, it's just too many painful memories. But the reality was we were going to meet the country music singer, and by the time I got to the suite, she was gone. And it could have been me. Could have been me, Gonky.
I hear a lot of stories that end like
it could have been me.
Could have been me.
Anyway, well, but Mace, thank you for the insight into that.
Yeah. Of course.
That's a world I didn't know. We have another story with Gonky where we did the NASCAR flyover for the
Folds 500.
Folds 500. And Gonky's screaming on the radio, recommend no burner. And they go,
no. It was
the ground guy goes, burners now, go. And dude, we just were like,
but Mover, you don't have to say why, but there was definitely a reason.
Oh yeah. Those pods aren't meant for that. Travel pods are not meant to go that fast.
Turns out
Gonky was trying to save the day.
Surely it wasn't the first time they've gone that fast, though.
No, you're right. Anyway, from the audience, we've got janitor's back. I think 50 questions for Mace is too much, or should I pare it down a bit? Probably pare it down a bit.
A bit, like 49.
40,
yeah. John says, good afternoon. Can't wait to hear from Mace. She's always just a great interview. She really is. Very, very good. Hopefully our host bully doesn't pick on her too much. Gonky is a cyber bully.
What?
Yep. We're working on that. Janitor says, sorry, Daytona, you are on pause. Mace is on. We watched the end of that.
There we go.
Her books aren't for Marines, says Garrett.
I mean, there's not a lot of words.
Big.
Not a lot of words.
It could be.
The type's big. The type is big. You can sound it out.
Yeah. Joe says, hi, guys, and welcome, Mace. I was reading where USAF is planning to extend the B-52 out to 2060. Question is, why not extend the bone instead? I don't know.
Are we still doing phrasing?
Correct. Yeah, so to speak. I mean, I don't know. If it's gone this long, so to speak, why not just keep it going?
I bet it has something to do with cost, man. I think the bone's probably significantly more expensive.
Yeah.
You get basically, I mean, it's supersonic, but I think it's subsonic most of the time, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. John again says the Viper's twitchy. That's why it's synonymous with. Call me twitchy.
Are you twitchy?
I am twitchy. Tweaker. One of the comments when we talk about mean comments later, there was a guy that said that we were all drunk and slurring.
Oh,
really?
And I'm wondering if he would listen to the podcast on 0.25 speed on YouTube. It was just user error.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. I don't drink.
Yeah, I know. That's bad.
Yeah.
Bob says, love your helmet game, Gonky. Is there something you need to tell us about?
No, he just
So
likes
to
my
speak?
three
Oh,
helmets. He likes Mace's. Keep reading, Mover.
I hear he gives good helmet. This sounds like a Spaceballs gag.
Comma, and there's more.
Mace takes it. In your defense, probably an unfair FE Thunderbird advantage.
Yeah.
It's a cool helmet. Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Janitor says, Mace, there's a 2020 SoCal video from a helicopter, one of the flyers where the right side of Delta almost collided. Can you talk about what happened? Yeah, you were in that, right? That was, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can tell that story. I don't know if you can find the video. I think if you search like on YouTube, near midair Thunderbirds, something, it was the America Strong flyovers. What we did during COVID when all the air shows were canceled. We flew the Delta over all different cities, and we joined up with the Blue Angels for the eastern half of the US, but West Coast was all ours. San Diego, LA was our last one. And a helicopter, I can't remember if it was a police helicopter or a news chopper, perfectly positioned themselves at our altitude in our flight path. And we are a 6-ship formation going 350. And so we started a turn. Yeah. Let's watch it and then I'll explain it.
I remember this.
Me too.
Gonky. Me too. Sorry, that's just funny.
It's perfect.
I don't care who you are. It's funny.
So that's not it. That's like we loosen the formation up occasionally when we're over like less populated areas. Otherwise, we would have been in close formation for like hours.
Whoa,
there we go.
Easy.
Yeah, you'll know when it happens.
Yeah.
I'm the far left, the one that also left the formation, but not quite so dramatically. But then I hang out wide for a long time because I'm like, oh God, what just happened?
But they don't show that. Do they actually show the helicopter in this video?
No, you can't see it because they're so zoomed in on us. Gumbo's on the other wing, are like recovering there for a minute. Yeah, we start the left turn and then the boss TC rolls out. Yeah.
Yeah.
He did a nice job of being really smooth though, on that.
Yeah.
As far as seeing something, I'm sure it startled him.
Yeah, a face full of jet. When you're just he's starting to match the jet turning, away from him. So he's like rolling and pulling towards the formation at that point, and all of a sudden the formation rolls back towards him. That's scary.
Is this looks like a full boot of rudder from you?
Oh, probably. I don't remember.
Here, like you see the nose kind of yaw using the
rudder? We use rudder to move laterally in formation all the time. It becomes really normal. So I'm sure I stomped on the left rudder when that happened.
Is it true? So I had a flight lead tell me, and I used this in the Viper, and I did it because I thought the Thunderbirds did it, that to slow down, if you wanted to slow, you could stir the pot, get the flight controls doing the thing. Is that, and it didn't look like the jet was moving? Have you ever heard that?
I've never stirred the pot, but I have definitely gone the solo rejoin to Delta when the 6-ship gets together towards the end of the air show. We would rejoin as solos to the Diamond, and our rule of thumb was no more than 100 knots of overtake at 1,000 feet of separation.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, no, that's crazy, right?
Wow, that's a lot of knots.
No, it is, because we didn't have a lot of time to get together. So it would be idle, full speed brakes, full left rudder, full right rudder. So you're just like slipping, and then you'd get into formation. And it takes some practice and getting used to, but it works really well.
Yeah,
you flight try that in DCS.
Yeah, I had a flight late. Oh, DCS. Here we go. But I had somebody's like stirring the pot. It'll get all the flight controls doing a thing. It'll slow you down. And I used to do it. I didn't know if it was working or not, but
I don't think if you move them that fast that it creates enough. I think you got to like put them in and leave them there, so to speak.
Hey, does the do the Thunderbird F-16s keep the radar?
Yep. Oh yeah, we use it quite a bit. Cross
50s, right? 52s.
Well, yeah, I was just
50s.
Gonna ask if the excuse me, if the boss maybe picked the helo up on radar before he saw him, because I'm sure you guys use it for deconfliction if you have.
Yep. Yeah. So we had the boss is trying to pick things up on radar. We have ATC who's trying to call out traffic, and then we have a photo chase who has a photographer in the backseat, number 8, who's in a D model. But number 8's job, he's like flying super wide, so he's not in any of those shots. But he is also on the radar calling out stuff. But we're like over San Diego and then over LA. There's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Like this is later in the pandemic, so more people are airborne. The first few of these we did, there was just like no air traffic. It was crazy. But the more of them that we did, we would publish them on social media in advance because we wanted people to come outside and see them. But then you had general aviation pilots that were specifically taking off and trying to fly near our flight path to see us airborne from their aircraft. Bad idea, my guys.
Please don't do that.
So we had a lot of deconfliction issues with general aviation. We coordinated with all these helicopters. There were NOTAMs out. They were just at the wrong altitude in our flight path. And so we started that turn. And for people that don't know, when the Thunderbird 1 does anything with his jet, anything from power changes to stick inputs, heading, everything, he calls that on the radio. And it's like a very specific word, like back in with the pull. He'll say it like that. And the P and pull is when he starts the pressure on the stick. And so the wingmen get used to hearing and anticipating. So we're already starting to move our jets before we see his moving because we hear him on the radio. And so when he says left turn and in T and turn, we all start to roll our wings. And then all of a sudden he just rolls out without saying anything because he has a no shit moment. the formation is just like thrown into chaos. And so my side wasn't too bad. All of a sudden, everyone just moved away from me. But poor Gumbo on the right wing, he's got a face full of jet. And that's where the video comes from. But we didn't hit a helicopter, so could have been worse.
What could have been a little cooler is if he'd have been like, "Oh shit," and
Yeah.
like, in cadence, and then
That would've been
and swoop. I mean, there could be something. You don't just have to.
You could do a voiceover of the video.
You could totally.
Oh crap! Ready now. All right.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you for.
That was a good question, though.
Yeah, it really was. Gonky, your segment.
Yeah. Doug, pull this up. So we just literally were setting up for the show, and somebody sent this to me on my channel.
My birthday, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
Just saying.
F-35 nose gear collapses in Fallon. So it's kind of a short article, but it's basically VFMA 311. Guy taxis in, parks a jet, starts to climb out, and the nose gear just starts retracting, collapsing. There's not a lot of details in here. I know the Marine F-35 squadrons are just now starting to get certified as combat capable and ready to go. So obviously not good. I have no idea what would cause the nose gear to just randomly collapse. Could be a height issue. Could be no idea. What do you guys think? I think it's just another black eye on the F-35, but that's
Stuff happens.
It said it happened as he's getting out. So then my first thing is like, well, did his knee, but obviously there's no hydraulic pressure. So like, how do you just collapse a nose gear with the pin?
It looks like a Tomcat kneeling, right? Tomcat.
Honestly, it looks a little better this way.
It does. It looks fast and not so heavy.
There's some great pictures shot from the side of this, and the comments on social media are really funny. It's like, ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah.
That is fun.
I found a quarter. People are funny.
Cake.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, this looks good. It looks like that experimental airplane, the Very Ease or whatever.
Yeah, the Long Easy.
Long Easy. There you go.
I mean, in all seriousness, it kind of stinks. I mean, I don't know what would. I mean, does the weight on wheels switch work the same in the F-35? I don't know. I assume they have a version of it. The weight on wheels switch has been working fine for decades.
Yeah. Well, again, and if the guy's getting out, what is the hydraulic pressure? There's nothing like.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully the engine's not running. I mean, we'll find out. New airplane, right? Weird problems. I think this is a new one. I don't think we've had a random retraction on the ground. Like May said, there should be weight on wheels to protect anything like this from happening. Right. But, or maybe he had a problem with the airplane in flight, fixed it, whatever, landed, and maybe, I don't know, who knows? Speculation at this point.
Expensive. If it's sitting on the EOTs, it looks expensive.
Immediate Class A.
Yeah. Somebody's in trouble.
Yeah. Hey, do you think those missile rails are stealth version?
No,
I'm just asking.
Listen,
extra stealthy.
Extra stealthy.
Stop asking questions. Okay. You got anything else to talk about on that
one? No, man.
All right.
Throwing on us last minute. That's all we got.
Listen,
sorry.
Speaking of last minute news, we play the Dos Gringos song because they shot a Predator. And I'm getting comments now because, all the Houthi supporters or whatever are like, oh, we shot down the MQ-9. We're awesome. Which, again, that's one less slot for us. So good job. Thank you. But they shot it down, and they're basically saying that a missile attack damaged the Belize flagship traveling through the strait that connects the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and they had to abandon the vessel. So that was pretty bad. But then they were like, hey, we shot down a Reaper, but the U.S. forces haven't acknowledged that. That's actually the second one that they say they've shot down. There was one in November, I think, that the U.S. actually said that happens. But the Houthi air defenses were able to shoot down an American plane, MQ-9, with a suitable missile while it was carrying out hostile missions against our country on behalf of the Zionist entity. Like, they can't even seriously say anything without throwing in ad hominem attacks. Just haters. They reported it carried out 5 airstrikes against Houthi military. And you're going to talk about this in a minute, Gonky, but I wanted to bring this up because obviously there's a huge difference between shooting down a Houthi or the Houthis shooting down one of our drones and the Houthis shooting down an F-18, right? And how we respond and how seriously we take it when something like that happens. Obviously, it's not good, but our acceptable loss is a little different when it comes to things that aren't manned. But I mean, Gonky, what do you think this does for the region in general? You know, and kind of what's going on. Is this like you were talking about in other episodes about, is this the one that finally got through, or is this just business as usual?
Probably at this point, business as usual, sadly. But I mean, I've said it before, man, like I'm hoping for de-escalatory actions and news, but you know, you get stuff like this and it's not trending. It's not trending that way. And, you know, like we've said, it's just a matter of time. And if if one gets through and takes out an airplane or a ship and there's, men and women that are, lost, it's going to be a different response.
Yeah. Especially in a case where it could be, it crashed itself. I mean, it just crashed, there's nothing saying that it actually got shot down. Mace, you got anything to add or any thoughts on MQ-9 stuff?
No, I think like you said, shooting one down is a lot different. Also different tactics than shooting down a manned aircraft, but for sure a different reaction. But yeah, it's like every time I see a new headline, I'm like, what's our reaction going to be? All right. Like nothing this time, or a slight escalation, or see what happens.
It's tough because, we don't want to be in a long drawn out war because we just learned the lessons for 20 years of that. But then this happens, and it's like, we just want this to calm down as much as we can. So, all right, going back to the audience, let's see. Andrew says, great respect to you, Mace, for achieving such a legitimate pioneering distinction. Excuse me. As a Thunderbird pilot, how do you rate the RAF Red Arrows?
Oh, they're good. I don't know. So we flew with them in my first season, Huntington Beach. We did a joint flyover down the beach. But I've never actually seen their show because when they were flying their show, we were briefing for ours. So even though we were there at the same time, I have not seen them fly in person. Yeah. I feel like the UK loves them so much. There's like so much loyalty there. We hung out with their pilots socially at that air show. They were all cool. It was good. I think every country's loyal to their specific air show team.
Mace, what airframes did because they fly the Hawk, right?
I think so. I have to check.
What I'm just curious, like what Grey Jet airframes did most of those guys come from? Do you remember? Or did you
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think you even got into that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Garrett, back to the helicopter incident. What was the debrief like after
that was your the
2020 helicopter near hit?
So we had been doing the America Strong flyovers for maybe a month or 6 weeks at that point, doing different ones. And they were a great PR piece because they were impacting a lot of people in a positive way. We got to fly over New York City. We were getting in front of a lot of audience that wouldn't see us at an air show. And it was, a tough time for everyone. So to see the Delta go over and we flew with the Blue Angels, to see both go over was just inspirational for so many people. So we're getting all this amazing feedback from the public. As pilots, those are the hardest sorties I've ever flown in my entire career. And we get it like, I mean, a 7.5 hour flight, air refueling 6 times. And whenever we're not on the tanker or transiting to and from it, we are at 500 feet in formation, flying fingertip, smoke on, smoke off, like being photographed by people. It was just a level of focus that I've never maintained for that amount of time before.
Wow.
Like it was like trying to be on the boom for most of a 7-hour flight. It sucked, not gonna lie. So we had done all those, and then we do this one, and we had bird strikes. We had issues finding the tanker because they weren't where they were supposed to be. We had near midairs with Cessnas. We were just like, these are so stressful. Our wing commander was actually in the back seat in that Delta with number 4, I think. And when we landed, he was like, I think we're done. I think the flyovers are done. And that was the last one we flew. So we debriefed it, but that was like, all of us were appreciative that he had been along on that flight to experience it firsthand, because we could talk about it, but the the public impact was so much of what the Thunderbird mission is that once we started doing it and the feedback was so good, it was hard to turn it off. But those were high risk flights. Like it was kind of only a matter of time till something went wrong, I think. You're in an air show, you're in a TFR. Like you have no other aircraft in there. You've studied it. You've looked at the obstacles. You've looked at Google Earth. You know exactly where the towers are. No one's flying through it. To fly that same closeness of formation at similar speeds, similar altitudes in an uncontrolled area is tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a long answer.
Yep, Gonky, the closest thing we've been is 5 hours in DCS. So we
it's felt real, dude.
All that
That's
intensity,
really, really close.
all that intensity, and we are pretty much
My
there.
seat shook. I had
We'll
a
get
seat
there.
shaker.
Your seat
Oh,
moved, dude.
valid.
Yeah.
That's a fancy upgrade. That sounds expensive.
Colin says, "Hey, all Mace, did you get a chance to fly with our snowbirds? We're going to go the international route. Everybody wants to know about their specific country.
Of course.
What was your experience? Any demo team you wish you could have caught a ride with, given the chance?"
I mean, it's always cool to ride with another demo team, see a different platform. I got to ride in the back seat with the Blue Angels with their lead solo before they switched to the Super Hornet. It was still super cool. I never got to ride with the Snowbirds. I was hoping to, but it was, again, whenever we were at a show site with them, when they were flying their practice or their show is when we were briefing for ours. Yeah. So since I was one of the demo pilots, I had to be in that brief. And so it was really tough to sync up getting a ride with them. I really like the Snowbird show. It's cool that they have so many aircraft. And those guys are just so fun to hang out with, right? It's Canada. Everyone's so nice. Like I really love the Snowbirds. They're great.
But you were also flying when they lost the public affairs officer, right? Wasn't that?
Yes.
That was around when you were with the team?
Yeah. And I mean, we all knew Jen Casey. Yeah. We all knew her really well. And I'm sure you read just amazing things about her afterwards, which you usually do when someone passes, right? Everyone has all these amazing things to say about them. But she was like one of those people that's just so charismatic, so outgoing, so friendly, just lights up a room. And the way that whole thing happened, I mean, for the injuries the pilot had, for her being in the back seat and, punching out and then not making it, like it was just really tragic. And it affected our team a lot. We all knew all of the people on their team at the time. So the airshow community is really tight knit, especially the international demo teams. Like everyone knows everyone, and especially Blue Angels, Thunderbirds, and Snowbirds. And so it's tough anytime a mishap happens.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of mishaps, Doug, so there was an EMB 195 that hit the rabbit lights, I think is what they hit. And they came around and landed.
Man.
And this thing,
look at that.
It doesn't look like Bondo is going to fix that. It may need a little bit more work.
She's leaking gas. Yeah. That's going to take more than some West Virginia chrome.
Doug, do you have the original tweet? Because it actually has all the backstory. Scroll up if you go up. Yeah. So Air Serbia, E195 LR, they returned back to the airport after hitting an airport infra, which I'm guessing is I don't know what that is. Do you know what an infra is, Gonky? Since you don't know what CPDLC is, I'm assuming you probably have no idea.
It's like a light or a pole of some sort.
So they were operating Sunday and they returned to base. And so probably pretty low to hit lights on takeoff, and came back around, and thankfully no one was hurt or injured, but that airplane looks bad. But if it were a Boeing, it might not, the doors might not have stayed on. So,
pick your poison.
You get a hole in the side there with the fuel leaking.
Is that where the baggage is too? Is some bags?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that thing.
Yeah, no, honestly, there's extensive damage here. And then with that fuel leak, thank goodness everybody's okay.
Late rotation, heavyweight, took off low.
That's a new airplane. The 195 is a newer.
Yeah.
So the foam standard with a fuel leak like that, or did they have a fire?
Probably the fuel leak. It's probably they're trying to prevent from sparking. That's a good catch.
It doesn't look
Yeah.
charred, but that's a lot
Yeah.
of fire foam, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good catch.
I like
There's
the big bucket they got under there. The
the
like
bucket.
we're gonna catch
We
it.
will use this again.
Yeah.
Gas prices are too high.
Yes.
We cannot. All right. Well, that's our non-expert
Yeah.
coverage of that. People sent this to me. They're like, you need to talk about it. Okay. Well,
Ouch.
Good thing no one's hurt.
yeah. Thankfully, it landed and it was in decent shape to continue.
It was in
the
landable
mission.
condition.
Yeah. Rose says for Mace, appreciate all of the motivational, inspirational posts you share on social media. Always look forward to reading the words of wisdom. Is that all from like the heart? Where does all this?
Yeah.
Where's your inspiration?
I think about all the things I struggled with, and I'm like, surely there's other people that struggle with these things, and maybe coming from me, it means something to them because I went and did stuff that they think is impressive.
Right.
So it's like, hey, all those things you struggle with, same, but I still went and did these things. So, I mean, it's really cool to talk about that touchy-feely stuff with people because it really does impact them. But yeah, I think we can talk more about that when we get to the social media haters.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
the haters stick with you, but I get a lot of people like Rose. I get way more people like Rose than I do haters, but we're always biased towards the negative. So that's what we dwell on. But thanks, Rose.
I'm 100% sure no one ever says anything nice about me. It's always
That's not true, dude.
I've never read a nice thing before in my life. Speaking of, hey, that's a great segue, actually. Speaking of saying mean things on the radio. So,
I haven't seen this.
I haven't heard this one either.
I don't know if this is so. Gonky, this may be above your noggin here because it involves technology that you're not familiar with. So, averting an aerial ambush, El Al flight from Thailand evades spoof ATC hijacking attempt. Dude, this is straight out of 24, like season 3 or something. They did this. This was the plot for 24. Like it finally made its way to Somalia, and they're now enacting the terror threats from that. But El Al flight 88 was navigating through airspace with regular Houthi activity, not Somalia. Sorry. Crew members received instructions to deviate significantly from their flight plan. They switched to alternative communication channels and verified the integrity of their original flight path with other air traffic controllers. Other flights have been seeing spurious air traffic communication advisories. The flight would have been directed in the area of vulnerability. Wow. Though it's not certain whether the aircraft could have come under direct attack. They issued guidance on increased risk. And if you watch the video, which we're not, from what I understand, they were spoofing VHF comms, so very high frequency voice comms, and basically overriding the actual controllers. And what the controllers managed to do, because they realized it was different voices, they said, hey, get on the CPDLC, which is the aircraft data link, and acknowledge all instructions via that, which is more secure than the voice. But you actually had the Houthis trying to give them instructions to descend, turn, or whatever, which could have been disastrous because they're luring them into an ambush, which I think this is the first time we've seen something like this. This is new.
That's scary.
Yeah, so you did send this to me. I did read it. I'm always surprised that they're like in the MH17, right? The 777 Malaysia Airlines got shot down. Why? It's because they were flying over a war zone. And you read this article and they're flying over like, hostile territory. I'm always surprised.
Well, they're flying near it. They're not over it. They're near it going back home.
Near, over, whatever. It always surprises me that the airliner routes during a conflict, where there's clearly shooting going on, why they would choose to fly so closely. I get it. It's fuel and, dollars and whatnot. But, MH17 got shot down because, it's debatable, but they flew, over some airspace that was hostile and got schwacked. And after that, right, they didn't continue flying airplanes along that route to keep that from happening again. But when I read this, I was like, man, why are we flying so close to hostile territory with airliners?
Again, what happens when it works? It just takes one, and that's the scariest part is what happens when one gets through.
So are commercial pilots getting trained then in comm spoofing? Like,
I'd have been like, yeah, hey, boss, they want us 090. Let's go this way.
Well,
like
you know,
working on your code words to hop frequencies and stuff.
well, that is a good point, Mace, because like airline companies have security departments, and it's their whole job to find and mitigate threats like this. Now usually it's like, you know, old school stuff that hasn't been thought of, but once something new comes out, I'm sure industry wide, it's going to spread like wildfire. And then the security departments are going to issue some kind of, you know, your message or crew message that says, be advised, they're spoofing. Because they were, in fact, in the article even talked about, you know, they were issuing NOTAMs for this. Be advised of spoofing. Do not accept any, you know, instructions via voice. Go to your data link, the CPDLC, for all instructions. And then you're right. I mean, it just adds another layer where they got lucky that, you know, they caught it. Smart people, you know, they realize, because that's the other thing too, right? When you accept a clearance, you check it. You don't just, you're not Michael Scott just going into the lake. You know, typically you go, okay, well, Gonky might be. Gonky might be.
Does that make sense?
Do what he says.
Heading carrots this way. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, these guys were. I don't have any training in long range international nav either. I don't know like what the protocol is for, you know, reporting points and air, you know, jet, whatever they do out there.
Yeah, it just depends on where they were. If they were on, you know, one of the oceanic routes, or if they were closer. It sounds like they were closer. It sounds like they were closer where they were actually under some controllers, or at least like a center controller or something like that where this happened. But no, it's definitely scary. But that's a good point, Mace, about you may have to start, you know, Chattermark and, you know, all the different code words and all that stuff.
Quick.
Yeah, in just specific areas. Obviously those tactics aren't that complicated. It wouldn't be that hard to add a layer of security in there that could prevent catastrophe.
I mean, sometimes you're like, how do you even know? Because sometimes the controllers even say, like, you're not a real controller. Yes, I am. You know, and it actually is a real controller. It's just you're in this part of the world where,
right, you know, the standard is different.
But that is, I mean, I have done a lot of South America flying, and you will get all kinds of. One of the biggest things like flying down there is that the controllers will speak 2 languages. So they'll speak English to you, but they will speak whatever, you know, usually Spanish to everyone else. And so sometimes they'll mix them up, or sometimes you're trying to listen to find out what everybody else is doing, and you have no idea what they're saying because they're back and forth. But we've had incidents in the airlines where people have trusted what ATC, where I was just making a joke about that, but it actually is serious, where they'll say, hey, take a vector, and that vector actually ran them into a mountain because they cut the arrival off and no one QC'd it. So actually a lot of airline policies out of that were, you know, don't accept any vectors. You know, you're just going to fly the arrival because that's terped. It's got all the obstacle clearance and stuff doped out. Just fly that. Don't accept shortcuts, all that stuff. So it may be one of those situations where we're not going to accept anything but as filed, or you know, we have to have a damn good reason not to, because we're not going to go fly into a Houthi war zone. But
don't do it.
No. Moving on, NADRAC. Marine F-35s come with crayons. It saw Gonky's coloring book and went to work.
Thank you.
That's an idea, man. That is an idea. That is, write that down. Mace, appreciate your frankness and transparency. You do a great job of bringing listeners into your world.
Thanks. Also, you have a cool last name, Little Wolf.
Yeah, that is pretty badass.
That is cool.
Thrawn Chimera. That's a pretty cool one. Love the show. Should I go Air National Guard pilot or active duty pilot? I have to wait 3 more years before missiles let me go for AD. I'm an active duty Air Force missileer with their PPL in first class. Go to the Guard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to the Guard. Don't look back.
Mm-hmm.
No further questions.
Mace, were you regular active duty? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, the whole time.
You did it working man like I did.
Yeah, woman, and that's why I know the answer to that question.
Yes, working man like I did. Okay.
She speaks from experience, but you did live in a reserve squadron, as we talked about.
CFI,
yeah. So
that was
got to see it.
That reaffirmed that I had made the wrong choice.
And Zippers Forever says it hit an ILS antenna 1,500 feet past the departure into the runway. The antenna is what's embedded in the wing root. So, yeah, you're pretty low if that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pure speculation on my part. I probably shouldn't speculate, but they don't put those up very high.
No.
Cameron French says, can I send you guys my copy of Best Guy to Watch?
Sure.
What's that?
What is
know.
that? Oh, dude, is that
Oh, wait,
Japanese Top Gun ripoff?
Is it the Indian one?
Is it Indian or Japanese?
I can't remember. It's one of them.
Yeah,
I would love to see it.
Yeah, no, send it. Yeah, send it. Janitor's back says, May saw you flying backseat in L-39. Are you looking to buy one for your business trip? And you flew in a MiG-29.
I did. If I could afford either of those, I wouldn't be on this show right now.
You know what, mate?
Wow.
If I could afford one of those, I wouldn't be on this show either.
If I could afford one, I would. So how about that? I would still be here.
I am not looking to buy one, but they are both very fun to be passengers / fly in.
You were a wizzo.
Oh, geez. Next. Don't get Mover started.
She's speechless. She can't. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, it was very nice to be a passenger, have no responsibility, but still be in a high performance aircraft. I was like,
Wizzo.
this is what you guys do back here? This is very nice.
Yeah.
How was the MiG-29? Did you do anything, Hayaka? Yo.
No, it was a photo shoot mission during Oshkosh, EAA Oshkosh. So I got to fly a little bit, but it was literally like fly 300 and hold a 30-degree bank turn so everyone can rejoin with us. I was like
300 commie units or American? Because I've got a little bit of experience in DCS with the old MiG-29, and I can't read the gauges because it's all in metric.
They've retrofit everything. That thing's upgraded. Yeah, it's real nice.
Yeah.
I did notice though, so I flew with Jared Isaacman, who owns that MiG-29, and he did the takeoff, but you light the afterburner and you get the initial acceleration, and then like around, I don't know exactly what the airspeed is, but around like 140, 150, I guess it has these things that cover the intakes to prevent FOD from getting pulled in, and they drop. And so the engine gets this boost of airflow. And so you get like thrown back in the seat, like right before rotation. And I was like,
VTEC.
It was awesome. I was like, that was impressive.
Hey, are you still friends with Jared Isaacman? Because I'm available for space.
Same. Yeah.
Or jets.
I can fly the MiG-29 too, but space also.
Kid, former Thunderbird 4 is going in the next one.
Yeah. So I can go one after that.
I know. I'm like, put me on the list too. Put me in, coach. It's cool that that's opening up for people that aren't going the traditional astronaut route.
Yeah, I don't go anywhere if I take my helmet off, my head blows up. It's just me.
They don't even wear helmets in space.
Well, okay, if you go outside of your flying device, real bad things happen.
Stay in your flying device. It's easy. Laura says, I say nice things about you, Mover. Oh, thanks.
There's one.
Yeah. F Geek Joe, which we do have your voicemail. We will talk to you later. So rad to have Mace on. So grateful for the post-pandemic memories of her last public performance. And Mover, don't you have a Spotify voicemail to play? Oh, there you go.
Tee it up.
I read straight from the teleprompter. I don't even know what it says until I get there. Plexi, $5 for inviting my favorite Thunderbirds to the show. Mace rules.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah. That's so nice.
And I'll have to read the comments later on YouTube to get the haters.
Don't do it. Just Mover will send them to it.
Chime in now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to start fighting with you in the comments. Gonky, your your topic is Thunderbird recruiting.
Yeah, Doug, pull that bad boy up. So, Embry-Riddle, very large aviation school, and they produce commercial airline pilots, very similar to a college that I went to, University of North Dakota. And looks like while the Thunderbirds were down in Daytona, they gave the president a ride in an F-16, which is, basically what the article is about. And there's a lot of people in the military that do a lot of online stuff. So Embry-Riddle is, has a lot of alumni that are military, even some of the Thunderbirds. And Mace, I wanted to ask you how much. So while the Thunderbirds were there, Embry-Riddle, like a team, like a pilot, a mechanic. They took kind of one from everybody just to want to talk to the like the ROTC kids and stuff for recruiting, since the Thunderbirds is a big driver in Air Force recruiting. I was curious, like how much of the collegiate scene did you guys target? Did you even target it at all, or is the Thunderbird strictly aerial demonstration to promote the Air Force? Did you guys go to like kids and we'll say young adults?
Yeah.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, no. So the kind of the normal show schedule would be on Friday before we did a practice. You would go do school visits, and so those would
Okay.
range from high schools to Civil Air Patrol to ROTC detachments. So yeah, that was pretty standard. So you do a lot of that almost every week.
Would you guys divvy it up like, hey, 2 and 3, you're gonna go, to the ROTC unit here? Would you guys try to hit up as much as you could? I being at UND, we had the air show there, although they had it at, I think they had it at no, the tanker base there, the 135s, but nobody ever came. Nobody from no, Minot was too far away. No, we had military types come and talk, but we never had the Blues or the Thunderbirds come. And I just read through this article. I thought it was really cool that they took the president up, because then for sure the school paper is going to do an article about it.
For
And
sure.
they're going to, it's just going to generate a lot of interest in the Air Force. And I guess I was just curious, outside of flying, how much advertising, if you will, for the Air Force is being a Thunderbird.
Yeah, that's the whole Thunderbirding part, as we refer to it. Like, and even when you get hired to the team, or when you're doing hiring for people coming on after you, that's like a big thing that you talk about, is like, is this person might be an exceptional pilot, they're going to do great in the cockpit, but how will they do with the Thunderbirding part?
Right.
And school visits is a huge part of it. Recruitment is one of the main parts of the mission, and then obviously like the inspiration piece of the mission. So we would do everything from school visits, hospital visits. Those went down a little bit with the pandemic, right? And post-pandemic, while I was on the team, because they closed kind of stuff off. But Make-A-Wish would have a tent on Fridays where all of those kids could come with their families and watch the practice with no crowds there.
That's so cool.
Was super cool. And then we would land, and instead of going to an autograph line, we would go hang out in the tent for like a half hour. We would just talk to them. Awesome. We would sign things, take pictures. That was always like a super rewarding thing that we got to do. And then you have PR events, which is at least one night for every show site. Sometimes there's multiple things. And that's usually sometimes it was just a performers party where it's other air show people, but a lot of times that was open to the public. Mm-hmm. And so you're on for that whole event, because the moment you pick up a cheeseburger to try to take a bite for dinner, if someone's like, "Can I take a picture with you?" And you're like,
and your flight suit won't fit anymore, right? Because it's so tailored. Because
it's a struggle.
Like some of the guys and on the team, like when you roll into a town, it's like, "Hey, I went to this college." Would like did they get to go? Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and people were always excited to go do that.
That's awesome.
So how did that work? Because they showed the picture of the Thunderbird. Did they bring like a support? How do they have the gear? Like, are they brought everything? Like, is there like a C-17 that follows you around, or because you don't have Fat Albert?
Nope. You basically just answered your own question. Yeah, exactly. We have a C-17. No Fat Albert.
A huge Albert.
Moose. It's a fat moose.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, occasionally we would end up with 2 C-130s if C-17s had taskings because we don't own that aircraft, right? So we're getting it tasked to us through Big Air Force. So it gets pulled to other missions. We're lower priority sometimes. But yeah, AFE, life support, that does all the gear. Yeah. They bring all the stuff for the fan flyers with. And they have to have a pretty wide range of flight suits to fit, because we would fly like a 100-pound gymnast, and then we'd fly like an NFL. Basically, the whole parameters of the ejection seat, whatever the min weight to the max weight is, we would, hit all those. So we have all the sizes of flight suits.
You're hauling around a flight dock too?
Oh, yeah.
To do the clearance to go fly? I mean, obviously you're having to do all that like on the spot, which is crazy.
Exactly. So they do a medical briefing with the flight dock. They submit their paperwork in advance.
Oh, okay.
So it's all reviewed. They have their doctor sign off on it, and then the flight dock meets with them, talks about G strain. They get fit for a G suit. And I mean, they're doing it with 1 to 2 people per week, so to speak. So it's a well-oiled machine.
How many, like roughly, how many incentive rides would you guys do when you rolled into a location?
Usually one per show site was pretty standard,
Okay.
but we might have a hometown hero at some show
Okay.
sites, which is always like the feel good stories that you'll see them post about, like a firefighter or a teacher of the year, or like there was a teacher that stopped an active shooter, like actually got shot taking him down, and like we flew that person. They like people that have done heroic acts fly them one day, and then we'll fly more like a public figure the other day, a media person, a celebrity, an athlete, something like that, just for outreach.
Now you didn't when you got picked up by the team, you didn't, and because I think in the Blues, like it depends on which slot you get hired for, determines whether you fly the 2-seat jet.
Mhm.
Is that the same in the Thunderbirds?
So any of us could fly the two-seater, the D model,
Right.
but 7 and 8, that's when they're doing the fam flights, the incentive
Okay.
flights, they are flying two-seaters much more often. The rest of us, it would just be if someone was going to ride in the back seat for the demo, like wing leadership or something like that, or a new hire, or for maintenance reasons, a D model was
Gotcha.
the only thing available. But it definitely changed how the jet flew. And so every time I got a D model put in my line, I was just like, no, because it flies a lot different when you're doing maneuvers.
Yes.
Yes, that is true.
Single seat as it should be. I understand
I'd
completely.
rather have the extra gas.
Mover.
No, seriously. It
So much hate. I know.
not only do you lose fuel, but I always felt like maybe it was psychological. I always felt like I was sitting farther forward and I had less room up front every time.
Yeah, it is. That's true. It's a couple
Yeah.
inches. I forget what the exact amount is, but you are closer to the instruments and it feels noticeably more crowded up there.
You don't think so, but then you're like, oh, this sucks. Where's I don't have a lot of room in the first place.
Yeah. And you have to, when you're doing the Thunderbird show, like a practice with General so-and-so in the back seat,
Oh boy.
you have to babysit them a little bit because they're not used to riding, even if they're a fighter pilot, they're not used to riding along and doing a 4-point roll where their head's getting bounced off the canopy, or they're not used to tightening their lap belt until it like digs into their hips and then you flip upside down and their head smashed against the canopy in the back seat. And so it is a distraction for sure, because you gotta be like, sir, you okay back there? Still awake? Yeah, no,
so we talked about this on the last show. Is it a show must go on, or do you knock it off? Because when we did fam rides, not incentive rides, when we did fam rides in the T-38 against the Raptor, we used to brief, unless you are dying and having a medical emergency, we are still going to keep fighting because it is too expensive for us to stop with Raptor training. We had to keep going. Could you stop, or were you like, sorry, sucks for you, go call Mike?
So if it's like an incentive flight where it's a number 7 or number 8 are taking that person out just for them, they'll do whatever they need. They'll come back early. They'll do less G's. If we're putting someone in the back seat during an actual practice, either at a show site or back at Nellis, you're not putting just anyone back there. They're usually already a qualified fighter pilot. And if it wasn't already a fighter pilot, we would be like, okay, if say it was like a flight doc or something, we'd be like, okay, how much have they flown in this type of aircraft, whatever. So we tried to mitigate that happening before by kind of screening who we put in the jet.
So these, going back to Gonky's article, are all incentive, right? There's no fam to any of this. It's just
single ship. They're going to go run through the solo maneuvers. They're not going to fly formation. And then they're going to do like a G warm up, and then they'll do 6 Gs, and then they'll be like, do you want to join the 9G club? And most people are like, well, I'm here. Occasionally people are like, no, like I've had enough. I want to go back.
Did you ever get the bodybuilder type that's like 9Gs again? Let's keep doing this. And you're like, sorry, we're out of gas. We got to go home. I can't do
There's
this.
definitely some people that are hardcore. Honestly, a lot of like the smaller women are just really good at pulling Gs. And so they're just like, let's do it again.
So, okay. Well, that's a good question. Were you good at pulling Gs?
No, I'm 5'10", so I'm like average height of a guy. So any advantage I had, I think I have like freakishly long arms and legs. So I was probably average at pulling Gs.
Yeah,
I was just lazy. I'm like, I don't want to tense up.
It's hard.
Did you have A tags?
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. That definitely helped.
That helps. I never got to fly with it, but I've heard it's nice.
It helps a ton. And I mean, I have nearly G-locked at altitude during BFM, but on the without A tags, on the Thunderbirds, I'm flying the max turn, hitting 9 Gs. 150 feet off the ground. And so I was, like very cautious in that maneuver to be really on top of the G strain and modulating power if I needed to, because that's a thin margin for error.
Yeah. Awesome. Moving on to the kids at home. Eddie says, I'm a bit late, but that Serb plane did an intersection takeoff. Not sure if you guys mentioned that. We did not, but that would explain why you're so low
Yep.
at the end of the runway. So deductive reasoning helps. JP, evening, all great show. Hope everyone has a great week. Thanks, JP. Renee says, May, saw you on the Kelly Clarkson show. You surprised a little girl who wants to be a fighter pilot. You were awesome.
That's cool.
That was fun. That was super cool.
Look how you're progressing. Kelly Clarkson, us.
Right? No.
Upward. You're on your way to your own MiG-29.
We're working on it.
Oh, yeah.
Zippers Forever says, Rinka says, anyone that writes hateful messages gets the teeth. Oh, that's a pretty puppy.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good dog.
I wouldn't want to get bit by Rinka.
Bob says, hey, Mace, Amelia loved the book. Awesome.
Bob was one of my first speaking clients. Brought me out to a convention, a real estate convention. So he's great. He helped out with my business. Like one of the list of people that reached out when I announced that I was leaving and starting to speak, and was like, hey, let's have you come out. So appreciate you.
Well, awesome. Bob, what about Gonky?
I'm too controversial.
Yeah, it's true. He will bully people from the podium.
Apparently,
some crowds like that, right?
Let's talk about your thumbnails.
Guardsmith says, "We love Mover. We love Mover."
There you go.
$6.90 is in the mail. Thanks for
two nice comments.
Says, make sure public speaking is a natural business to get into after the Thunderbird. Would that have been a choice after being on the team?
Absolutely not. That was terrifying. No, my first PA training with the Thunderbirds, which was just wing public affairs. It was like an airman who I didn't know, who's like puts you in front of the camera and asks you questions to prepare for doing those at air shows. I don't even think the camera was actually on. And I was so stressed out and nervous before getting in front of this camera. It was like more stressful than learning these high stakes maneuvers, because that whole idea was terrifying. But you get better at that as you do it more and more. You get used to it.
Gonky. See, there's hope for you yet.
I don't know.
Just stops. You got to stop the drunken slurring is all I'm saying. We gotta
lay off the booze.
AvGeek says, at the rope lines from 2019 to 2021, we had lines mob all around one Thunderbird pilot so bad we had called it the Mace Pit. I understand the name stuck for threat and agent. Okay.
There were a lot of people in the autograph line. It is true.
Yep. How is the rivalry between here I am. How's the rivalry between the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels, says our pilot? I assume it's friendly ribbing, but much respect for each other.
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it. I think the internet thinks we hate each other. But like, everyone else that's on that team while you're on the other team, and you train together in the winter for a week and you ask each other questions throughout show season. If you come across something like weird that the other team has dealt with, it's kind of, there's a lot of like best practices that are shared between the two teams.
Mace, does the Thunderbirds have like a winter training and a summer training place?
Just recently, they started that right when I left the team. So like winter of, I guess it would be like January of 2022. They did that for the first time, and they went to Spaceport. And where was the other one? It was all out in like New Mexico, in the middle of nowhere. Because the problem with airspace here, I live in Vegas still. So here, around Vegas and Nellis, it's busy.
Right.
And so it can be hard to get practice space. So they took that playbook from the Blue Angels, who go to El Centro every winter, and went somewhere where there's not a lot going on, where they could practice whenever they wanted.
Would you have found that helpful to have a less contested area to practice when you were on the team?
It's pros and cons. Like, yes, as far as proficiency, but you're already on the road 240 days a year. So to take another 2 weeks to a month away from your family during the only time you get to be with your family is tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell, I think. So pros and cons, but I see why they do it.
Yeah. Petro Mark says, I remember hearing about Jerry Reed being on a fan flight in an A model Viper and they had to punch out. Has anything like that happened with the T-Birds Blues with the passenger on board?
Not that I haven't heard that story. Not that I know of. I'm sure stuff has happened, right? Maintenance issues, nothing that dramatic that I've heard of.
Well, there was the French guy. I've covered that mishap where the French guy was in the, was it a foul? And I mean, it makes sense if it's a foul, but he had a G restriction. The flight doc gave him a G restriction. And as soon as he took off, they bunted. So he did the unrestricted climb. It was like, oh, no, we're only going to pull 4 Gs. And then he bunted. And when he did that, the civilian just pulled the handle. And luckily it was in solo. So he went, and the dude in the front, actually, it wasn't in solo. It failed. So the sequencer between the seats failed. And so he went out, the dude turned around and landed, met him at the ground. And, it was this whole big thing.
Wow.
So, I mean, that really sounds like a best case scenario, though, because they found out that seat was broken.
Right.
And all they lost was a canopy.
Right. Yeah. If he'd have had to punch out on purpose, the front seater would not have made it. So,
yeah. So, I mean, let's look at
this is why you're public speaking, because you're so optimistic.
We're half empty.
We are
I can tell.
Empty. We're just Jason says you rock. Correct.
Jason.
And then BJ with the 6.09.
Perfect.
Hey Gonky.
Yes, sir.
Your brethren and sisters
they're not.
are updating tactics to fight the Houthi horde.
Yeah. So like Movers talked about earlier, the Navy and I guess the Marines with the Harriers are out there repelling the drones and Houthi missiles that are coming at the ships. So, this article is basically about, maybe they can get some high energy kind of weapons out there to help kind of preserve the high dollar missiles that we're using. The big takeaway on this, I don't know, Doug, you scroll down a little bit, is I guess some of the reaction times that they have are, which just surprises me, 60 to 90 seconds. There it is, Doug. You flew past it, but that's not a lot of time.
It's a made up number.
Yeah.
They asked somebody, they're like, well, how many? 60 to 90 seconds. That's all.
Yeah. So, but, well, I mean, we keep talking about like the one that slips through, and right, Mover, like 2 weeks ago, they had the
the phalanx.
The drone made it all the way to the phalanx, and that thing is a 20 Mike that's in the F-16 and the Hornet. So I mean, you're talking close range. So, it just kind of highlights the fact that I think Navy ships, and it talks about a layered defense, right? So probably the farthest out there is going to be like your Hornets and Harriers, and then inside of that, you're going to shoot your Sea Sparrows at them or whatever, and then last minute you're going to hit them with the phalanx. But that's where it gets real expensive when you're shooting down, stuff that's being launched at you every day. And they're trying to come up with a better solution, which to me, it just brings up like, sharks with laser beams. If you could have destroyers out there with laser beams,
yeah,
you wouldn't need an airplane. You don't need the Sea Sparrow. Probably don't need the phalanx. So I don't know. It worries me that the reaction times, even if this is a made up number, which I think it is, but it is pretty close. I think it's high stakes, really.
What's the warhead on these things? Like, what damage would it do if it actually got through?
It depends. I mean, if they're shooting, a drone's got a different warhead than an anti-ship missile. I mean,
yeah, they said this was the first ballistic anti-ship missile deployment ever. I mean, I don't know of any other cases where they're talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, dude, anti-ship missiles, like any of them within the last 30 years, will put a very large hole in the side of your floating device.
We don't like people messing with our boats.
No, because they're very expensive and they carry a lot of people. Yeah. So I don't know. It's I don't know what the solution is. It's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of what we did in Afghanistan, right? I mean, you got an entire air wing of airplanes overhead trying to take out the guy with a shovel and a, $50 IED. And it's, I mean, I don't know. There has to be a better way. And it sounds like they're at least working trying to work towards a better way of doing this if they're going to continue, this conflict, whatever it is out there.
Mace, you went to Balad or Afghanistan?
Afghanistan. Yeah,
Bagram. Were they doing the same like Balad, shooting mortars?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you ever see like the 20 Mike get shot at the mortars when the mortar attack was ever happening? You ever see that?
Oh yeah, it's cool.
The little R2D2. Yeah, it's cool, but we've been doing it for a while, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like small targets from not so advanced enemies. We've been doing that. So this
did
is
any
just
make it through?
Oh yeah.
Not while I was there, but it like regularly happened
At Balad all the time. You
Yeah.
know, right next to the hooch. You're like, oh God, that was close.
Yeah, there was a contractor killed right before I got there from shrapnel from one that made it through.
Yeah, because the little R2 unit missed it.
Yeah, like I don't know how much of it got through. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be the level of readiness that these guys are maintaining for being
Right.
shot at every single day in a ship, right? So you're so contained in such tight quarters. It's gonna be stressful. I mean, deploying's always stressful to some degree, but
so like I was on the Antietam, and I asked the guys there because at the time I was getting my flight lead upgrade, and we do these scenarios where we're the first layer of defense, and then if we get any leakers or whatever, we pass them off to the ship. And I always ask them. Well, I asked him. I said, "Hey, like, what's the, is it, hey, target with birds, target with birds, target with birds, target with birds, and, like, how long is this chain before the guy hits the button, because I want to know."
Send in the drones.
Right. So, he's like, well, it depends on the weapons posture. If it's, white and tight, it's forever. But if it's like free and clear, he's like, it's pretty quick. So I think you're right, Mace. I bet they're at a pretty, weapons free posture.
Yeah. Which,
yeah.
Scary. I mean, I obviously have peripheral knowledge of this, but like, I know some of the ops tempos on ships suck already, right? Like, like when you're on deck, if you're an officer and you're doing your other duties and stuff, like people are pretty sleep deprived. So I imagine like at that readiness state can't be the most fun place to be.
No.
Well, so the skipper of what is it out there? Is it the Enterprise or Eisen? It's the Enterprise, right? That's out there now.
There's a couple boats.
Chowder Hill, the one that's a very famous. He's got a huge Twitter following, but he talks about leadership because they were on 60 Minutes, and they were even talking about what you're talking about, Mace. He believes that morale makes good, solid performance. So they have like brought in like sleep analysis people to get circadian rhythms synced up so that, the right shift is sleeping at the right time so that they're max performing at all times. They've got the dog on board to try to, de-stress people. Like they've done a whole lot of things. He's always bringing people up, recognizing them, giving them promotions, field promotions and awards and stuff. And they're operating at a high level, but I think he's doing a good job, at least from the outside looking in, of trying to maintain that morale. Because you're right, you'll burn out. I mean, if you're in this constant heightened state, like that's the thing PTSD is created, because you come back and you never can turn it off.
Totally. Yeah. I'm sure he's doing what he can. I'm sure there's a lot that, no amount of service or stress animals or awards or anything that can help, but at least he's aware of that.
Yeah. Speaking of stress, dude, we got problems, man. We're living in a Bond movie, and not the good ones. So Gonky, have you heard of this?
Nope.
So Russia, they just, it was on Twitter most recently, where all the senators came out and they're like, we need to tell the world about this new Russian threat. And apparently they're developing a nuclear space weapon to destroy satellites with a massive energy wave, basically an EMP in space. And they're going to destroy these satellites. And then when detonated, it's going to cripple a vast swath of commercial government satellites, which, as you know, or maybe people don't know, that covers communications, cell phones, internet, the way you do business. Everything is basically satellite navigation, Starlink. So most recently, Elon Musk, they shot up the Starlink satellites to give internet to Ukraine so they could communicate. And in 2024, that is basically your command and control now, because everything is satellite. We got to talk back to the mothership. It could be the mothership. I mean, hell, they could be shooting the aliens down for all I know. But they said it was a last-ditch weapon, and then they go on to say, but it's a violation of the Outer Space Treaty, which Russia is a signatory. Although,
well, good, that'll save us.
Yeah, the fact that, well, their word is their bond, right? I mean, obviously, no one ever lies if it's a treaty. But it brought up an interesting point, because this is actually something we've talked about before. When I was in, flying the F-16, it was a hot topic, and it wasn't because they were going to shoot down our satellites, because we didn't know much about that at the time. But we always had a feeling there were ways that the enemy could deny our ability to communicate, and we still had to go through with it. And we trained a lot to it, specifically to the point that, sometimes for the readiness exercises, we turn everything off, and it would just be, you're out on your own as a roving motorcycle gang and hope it worked. And a lot of times it did, and a lot of times it didn't. We learned a lot of good lessons. But I mean, what do you guys think in this scenario? Is shooting a nuke in space as bad as nuking a city? As far as, I mean, you're not going to have loss of life, but the total communications blackout, like, that's such a huge escalation that I don't know how you respond without another mutually assured destruction scenario.
That's a hard question. They both, well, I feel like if you do it in space, it might escalate to on the ground anyway, right?
Right.
Sorry, Mace.
I was going to say, this is like a shitty end of Earth movie that I watched like 10 years ago.
I just don't, I mean, to do something like that would be an obvious and a blunt message of escalation, right? It would be something you would do before some sort of massive military attack as well, right? You want to just crush their communications, cause mass chaos and disruption among the satellite systems, and then you do your thing. I think they'd probably treat it as detonating a nuke on the Mother Earth, but that's just my unprofessional opinion.
I mean, I think in such a case, because it's obviously localized, right? You're not going to get all the satellites. You're just going to probably get, what's in a certain area. Thanks, Doug. But you're gonna get a certain area. But I think the show will go on. I think we have the ability to continue operating, but the problem is they don't just put them there overnight. So to rebuild that infrastructure after such an attack, even if it doesn't escalate to something on the ground, it's going to take a while. You're going to be blacked out for a long time and resorting to old school, radio waves. And, I mean, it's you're going to be taking a step back technology wise in that area.
That's just it. Like, we don't practice to that anymore. Not really. I mean, when you're getting your 80 hours a year in your 5th gen fighter, it's like all systems on.
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
All right, from the kids at home before we go to jail. He's gonna get us killed. Clitoris, what a name. I get to see the Blues do loops every day for like 3 months here in El Centro. Kind of cool because you can see them make mistakes and slowly get better.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're bad at first.
JB Smoke says, great to see you, Mace. You've enriched a lot of lives. Communicating your experiences. Keep the good words rolling. See?
Thanks.
Zipper says, Navy surface warfare skipper punched out of a Tomcat in Fallon.
Yes, he did.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Indian Top Gun is free on Soap Today. Don't know what that means, but okay. Jason says, I worked with Cram as an air defender in the Army.
Okay.
What is Cram?
I don't know.
Okay, cool. John says, I'm sure the current state of escalation has motivated the DoD to test or produce laser EMP technology to our deployed fleet. It would be interesting to see. He's talking about the Houthi thing. I don't think he's talking about space yet. Nukes in space. Bob's talking about that. On top of the bad you mentioned, the space junk created would mean closing off space forever. Kessler syndrome. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The debris.
And then where's the ISS at any given time? Where's Mace in SpaceX?
right?
Followed shortly by Mover going to high five at SpaceX. Elon.
Send me some pictures.
I think the attack would be like the low orbit satellites. I was just reading about this, and like the ISS and a lot of that stuff is the higher orbit, so that would be safe. But can you come home?
Back. Yeah,
you come home. You can't come home. You're okay. This would be a good movie plot.
Write that down. Where's my
start writing, Mover? Next book.
Now you're stuck there, and you can't get through the debris. And now it's the Martian. Hopefully, you're a botanist.
Say slower. Slow that down real quick. Botanist, Martian.
Yeah. Yes,
there we
you're
go.
Stuck in space.
Gonky's coloring book will include scenes from
pictures. That's right. Lots of pictures.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Dude.
MJ says, "Hey, Mover and Gonky, good morning from Australia.
Yeah,
great to see Mace on the show. Area denial against drones is still last generation. Fast acquisition, firing laser, maser platforms are the only practical answer at the current time. Healthy, promising. Okay,
wow.
Thanks,
man.
Mace, can we get a Thunderbird taxi hand jive?
No, that retired when I left the jet. It's the little gang signs that you do when you taxi out, like to the crowd. But it would be weird for me to do it right now, sitting in my office without a helmet on.
You got a helmet behind you.
My hair won't fit.
I'm just saying, if you do it, Gonky will do it.
I have no gang signs.
Big cheese says, join late. We'll savor the show tomorrow. Mover and Mace, you're both legends, but who is better F-16 pilot? Thank you for everything that you do.
Such a nice moment. Don't ruin it.
Yeah,
next.
Mace.
Depends what we're doing. My tactical ability is far outdated at this point.
C-RAM, my bad. Okay. Space junk. Time for space nets.
Oh.
Dude, now we're getting into it's space balls, because then we're gonna have the little vacuum cleaner that sucks the atmosphere to take it to another planet. We're gonna
have to make a Mega Maid, man.
Mace isn't old enough to have seen Spaceballs. What are we talking about?
Yes,
I saw it. It's just been a minute.
Gonky.
Yeah.
Speaking of Russia.
Well. Yes. So
more today, actually. This is outdated. It's now up to 5.
Well, that's what you said. So in this article, it talks about a Su-34, which is more of a strike fighter bomber, I think Strike Eagle type, and then a Su-35. 3 total being shot down by Western surface-to-air equipment that the Ukrainians have gotten. This obviously happened in the eastern part of the country, and I think, Mover, you said what, they nailed 2 more, 3 more?
Yeah. So they talked about 2 more today, and this is all the open source intelligence stuff on Twitter. So who knows how realistic it is. But the interesting thing today was that Russia was taking credit for it, saying we shot our own people down. Ukraine, they're so desperate not to give Ukraine a win that they're like, yeah, that was actually friendly fire from our own SAM guys.
Well, I mean, it does. I mean, you mentioned it. It mentions like in the article below, like this is unconfirmed. So who knows what's actually happening over there? I'm sure eventually, we'll get, pictures of the wreckages and stuff will surface. But yeah, I mean, whether I don't care what side you're on. If you're getting shot at by an S-400, bad. If you're getting shot at by a Patriot, bad. And, both of those systems are out there. So, I mean, if you're flying anything.
Yeah. So a second article on this says it shot down 2 more today, which extends its streak to 6. So the 2 today were also the Su-34 and Su-35. So it keeps, every time it's a combination of the Su-34, Su-35. Yeah. Right? Because that's what yours was too.
Yeah.
Did they fly together for tactics?
They might.
I don't know. I know the 34 has, it has some, it's, it's multi-role. It's more of a bomber, but, it's kind of multi-role. But those are expensive airplanes. It talks about, those 3 jets cost $100 million US. So, it's a big deal when you lose airplanes. Those are, more the more modern frontline assets that Russia has. So I'm surprised, Mover, that they're saying, no, it was actually, we shot them down. I don't see, I don't see how that helps them.
Well, the same thing happened with the A-50 and the 76. Like Russia does not want to give Ukraine that moral victory, or I guess morale victory more than anything. They don't want them to be like, we are vulnerable to the peasants that we are fighting. So that's what this mentality is they would rather say we screwed up and we're going to hold that party responsible than to admit that their enemy has the ability to reach out and touch them. But the reason they have that ability to reach out and touch them is because of the weapons that the West is giving them. I mean, Patriots, SAMs, they've got the S-300, I think. Did they get some S-300s and 400s as well?
They got scary ones. That's all I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not unrealistic that they're shooting them down, especially over the sea. You know, you're looking a lot of vulnerability, which goes back to our argument about previous other jets, right? Because it's tough when you're flying at a medium altitude. I mean, it's just tough. It's
right.
not, this is not a low threat environment like you'd see in Afghanistan or the later days of the Iraqi war.
No. And I'm just curious to what, like, you know, obviously, I mean, in my mind, Russia's just playing the long game. So I'm curious, kind of like, you know, what their as a fighter pilot, what is the missions and tactics that, you know, as far as my part in this entire long game that I think Russia is playing. That's all. I mean, with these kind of expensive airplanes.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else on that one? Because it's a segue. Speaking of friendly fire, they actually did so again. It goes back. Every one of these things it was a Russian aviation struck positions of its own armed forces, but then it says, you know, the sources and ATESH agent from the ranks of the Russian armed forces informed us. So it's like, do we believe this? I do think this is a realistic scenario. On the night of the February 16th to 17th, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced the decision to withdraw Ukrainian troops, which was under threat of enemy encirclement. Later, the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, whose soldiers covered the exit, stated that the critical moment had passed, but the operation to regroup forces is still ongoing. And at this point, they accidentally bombed the artillery during this withdrawal. So the aviation regiment was basically there was a strike inflicted on positions occupied by artillery units of the 239. So you've got a scenario where you've got forces that are very close contact, close proximity. And we've seen this. I mean, we've seen this in Afghanistan. We've seen this in Iraq. Anytime you've got friendly forces in close proximity to enemy forces in a hectic environment with the fog of war, this sort of thing happens where you accidentally bomb, strike, whatever, a friendly position. And it sounds like that's what happened here. I mean, how many times have we heard that in previous conflicts, Gonky?
Oh, dude, blue on blue is real. I mean, I was actually a part of a blue on blue scenario. I don't know if I ever told you, Mover, but my flight lead made a mistake. We were taking out some guys in Afghanistan, and what he had done. So in the Hornet, if you go into the data sublevel, so he went into the data sublevel, went to his target waypoint, put the coordinates in for the target, step back out, and in the Hornet, when it steps back out, it takes you back to the waypoint that you had previously selected before you went into the data waypoint. So, which happened to be the friendly forces position, because they would always give you the friendly force position, even though they weren't supposed to. So you could use the FLIR, and then they would walk you, right? And you know, he he rolled in, and thankfully he didn't have many rounds left in the gun. We were strafing, and you know, that was bad. I mean, that was a long flight back to the boat, and like literally I forget the air wing that was there before us. They had a blue on blue incident where, unfortunately, in the one I was involved in, there was thankfully nobody was injured, but the carrier strike group that we relieved, they had a blue on blue where unfortunately some guys on the ground were killed, and it was they were doing strafing again, and we got to see the HUD tapes, and you know, they're strafing one side of the river, and then for whatever reason he lines up on the wrong side and strafes the wrong side, and it's you know, like you mentioned, it's the fog of war. And you know, when hot lead starts going down range, DCS is fun in games, but in real life, like, like real people, can get hurt. Even, the guys and gals you're trying to help can get hurt. So, you know, don't sit there and think, oh, the Russians are just dumb, because it happens. It's happened in every conflict. So,
well, don't underestimate your enemy either. I mean,
yeah, 100%. 100% can happen.
Mace, you got anything on the Russian friendly fire?
I mean, it seems like it probably is going to happen several times. Like, you think how easy it can happen to us with the level of training we have, the level of technology we have.
Yeah.
Now you take a older Russian jet, less well-trained pilot. Seems like it could very easily happen.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in a scenario like this where because they were retreating, they were giving up the ground because they didn't want to be surrounded. They had taken the area, but then the areas around them were encircled with Russians. So the Ukrainians were like, we're backing out because even though we captured this city, everything around us, they're just we're not gonna have a way out if we don't leave now. And I think as they're leaving, you've got fog of war, late updates, intel maybe that's not, necessarily fast, and it's fast paced. And this, whoever this is probably trying to do the best they can with what they have, and not this is an objective analysis. This is not, one side or the other, just looking at it from a fighter pilot's perspective. Because I don't think, regardless of your culture or country, you want to bomb your own people. Typically, it's frowned upon.
No.
To the gulag. All right. Doug, what is that you have, Doug? Is that
It's the Cessna. It's some small plane on a busy Broward County road.
Oh, it's not the aviation wrap up?
Nope.
Okay.
It's different.
Well, we'll do that. What's it called? Cessna?
It's pretty cool footage of it looks like maybe a 150 or 152 losing the engine.
Good evening. Off the top at 6 tonight, we continue working breaking news. An emergency landing in Parkland. And just into the newsroom, incredible video of that plane flying right above cars on a busy road. The pilot was forced to make that busy roadway her runway.
Let's get right to Local 10's Terrell Forney live on the scene in Parkland with the very latest. Terrell.
Everything went right for this emergency landing, and that by itself is a miracle, according to investigators. You can see that plane behind me, but they had a lot of obstacles on this very busy road. Not just to mention the traffic pushing through, but also the traffic signal poles, trees, anything that you can name. But this plane found a path into some bushes. The female pilot not up for saying much. She escaped without injury, though, along with the second person who was also on board that aircraft that appears to be from X-Flight, a flight school out of Pompano Beach.
Sure.
In fact, flight radar shows the plane took off from Pompano Air Park at 3:22 this afternoon and was in the air for roughly 12 minutes.
There we go. Now we can watch it.
Down along a residential neighborhood in Parkland.
Someone could have gotten hurt. Yeah.
Oh, you ever watched the thing?
Walking and biking over here.
Oh, you're a helicopter.
And right now, FAA investigators are on the scene. The
Where's
preliminary
the video? The thing doing the thing.
Being told is that this.
I think this is all it shows.
Being
it just
caused
shows
by engine trouble as that plane was in the air for that very short amount of time. Again, no.
Let's get rid of this guy.
So, kids, I think what we can learn from all this is 2 engines is way better than 1.
That ejection seat comes in handy, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I guess. It was a compelling story, Gonky. Really?
Yeah. I mean, clearly the engine was running, but it wasn't making a lot of power.
Yeah.
And the scariest flight I've ever had in my life was when me and my wife were in a Cessna 172 and we lost a cylinder. And the engine was running, but not very well. So, I mean, I feel their pain because there's no ejection seat. And you guys got to make your own runway, I guess.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, as long as they had a legit mechanical malfunction, which I'm sure they did, they did great. They landed, no one got hurt. The airplane is pretty much in one piece.
Yes.
I read after I saw that it was that the woman was a student and she was with a CFI and he wasn't in that video at all. But he was over by the airplane. So it was a instructor student.
Mace, do you have any time in GA?
Not a lot at all. No, basically as a passenger, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. Not gonna lie.
But you were flying Cirruses now. Didn't you have some videos of you?
Oh, that was with one of my friends who has a Cirrus. Got to take my whole family up.
I got
We got
you.
to
I
put
thought you were
our 10-year-old at the controls, which he thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
But I would like a Cirrus.
But isn't it?
Well, stay on this podcast. We'll get you one.
Yeah. Now accepting donations.
But Mace, isn't it wild? Like you go like I think general aviation takes so much more skill because like you're talking about airplanes that have like basically no excess performance based on the airplanes we flew. Like they don't go very fast, they don't stop very well, they can't turn. You're literally along for the ride. You know?
Yeah. One of the things that freaks me out is if I want to get into general aviation, I need to get spun up in that world, right? Because I've been in the military aviation the whole I always had excess thrust.
Yes.
We obviously have a lot of waivers for things. Yes. We do things very differently. I'm like, I basically need to go through ground school, the whole shebang. But I don't think I can go do that with a 22-year-old CFI who knows that I was a Thunderbird pilot, because they're going to do like weird things that they wouldn't normally do, or they're going to let me push things when they shouldn't. I don't know. Like I need to find the right instructor, and I don't like the idea of having one engine and no ejection seat. That kind of
you got to go. You grew up in northern Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
You got to go back there and find some little airport where there's some crusty old CFI
with 8,000 hours.
Yeah. And who flew like bombers and Nam or something.
2,500 hours in Phantoms.
Correct. You'll have no problems.
That is who I need for sure.
But yeah.
Okay. Yep. That's
good. No one was hurt. That's good.
Good job, Gonky.
Yeah.
It was
why is it good job? Okay.
Listen. All right. I got a story for you.
Oh boy.
People love us talking about this. So the spokesman of the Ukrainian Air Force noted that the recently published photo of an F-16 fighter jet with Ukrainian Air Force livery made Russians nervous. Of course, the F-16s, when delivered to Ukraine, will become a sweet target for the invaders, which I'll point out, Special said that and got blasted in the comments for. The angry people are like, no, what do you mean? They would never do that. And here the Ukrainian guy saying this. Believe me, is proper. It's being prepared. Will be properly adapted. Making it proper is not simple of a process, which we have said. Infrastructure is being adapted. Pilots are being trained, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And the interest photo made where the markings are visible. Some discuss whether or not they may be real. Let's see what the Russians are saying, and we see them saying things. Let them be a little nervous. So this is going to get some haters, but the fact that he said that tells me it's fake. Also, the fact that, I mean, where would they have painted this? I mean, now, granted, there are F-16s in Europe right now. We talked about that before, where there was this rumor about Ukrainian pilots in Romania going out on missions, which turned out to be false. But I don't think in this particular case they have put the livery on any specific aircraft just yet. But this is the picture that they're saying. So it was a guy with his patches and livery. Obviously,
can you tell me anything about that variant of the F-16?
I mean, that looks like the MLU jets that they have. Mace, you flew with the Polish F-16s, right?
Yeah, back in 2017.
Yeah. So CATM 120s, 2 tanks, looks like a targeting pod. I mean, you can't tell anything other than that.
No.
But just the fact that he said, I'm going to leave it to your interpretation when someone tells me that, probably not. But the good news is, however, that they are doing training and they're about to graduate. Base, you said your book comes out when?
May.
Well, guess what? That's when they're going to graduate.
Oh, thank you. That was a nice little
yeah. So
equally celebrated.
Good graduation present is Mace's book, followed by the first Ukrainian F-16 pilots will complete training as soon as May. Air National Guard director says the effort is taking a bit longer because pilots need to learn a full range of missions. They will start graduating in May. They're already soloing and they're training 12 Ukrainian pilots in FY fiscal year 2024, which for us that starts in October. So they've been doing this. What they do then depends on the broader F-16 effort when the jets will actually arrive. So they don't have that. And it's important to note that the U.S., which controls the export of fighter jets, gave allies the green light to transfer. So even though it's not our jets, we still, for export control, the agreements with the countries, we get to say where it comes from or when they're allowed to. But they're already soloing F-16s, and I believe this is Tucson that's doing the training. I may have read that somewhere else, but the Tucson Air National Guard is where they're actually out training. So good news for that, but it has taken a while, which, we all know. But Mace, you spent a lot of time training Europeans, I guess, with this. What do you think about how the Ukrainian training's going?
Yeah, I mean, I spent one summer in Poland. I was a very new instructor at the time. All the guys that I was working with were generally going through the FLUG, so they were going through the upgrade to become a flight lead, and they were pretty good. Like they all had trained in Tucson. They were Western trained.
Yeah,
they knew our tactics. I would say they were as good as our average FLUG students were. And so it's the potential is there. It's just, how good is their English? How good is their reading retention? And that, obviously English is the international aviation language. But as you mentioned, when you talk about flying in South America or,
right,
when I was flying in Japan or whatever, the proficiency varies greatly. And I think when you're trying to learn a whole new aircraft in another language, it could be tough. I mean, because your average American UPT graduate who's coming into a B course, you have a lot to learn in the first 6 months. It's a pretty fast-paced course.
Mace, you said you taught in Poland, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were the students you were teaching, were they coming off Russian equipment?
I'm not sure what they did their initial training in. If they went through NJEP pilot training and then went on to Tucson.
So they had so they were new.
They were they were new, and they were very well. It was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be as far as cultural differences.
Did you ever meet anybody that had flown the MiG-29 before flying the Viper? Did any of the other instructors or other
the older guys.
Yeah,
for sure. One of the things while I was there, they were trying to get me a flight in the MiG-29, but maintenance issues and deployment schedules and all the things that never ended up working. But the older guys for sure had flown the MiG-29 first. We didn't get in a ton to discussing the differences, but I mean, the general opinion was that the F-16 was a lot easier and more effective to fly. So
yeah, easier to fly, harder to employ, kind of seems like, just for that jet. Well, I guess not harder to employ compared to a MiG-29, which is probably.
Well, yeah, I asked a question because when in Malaysia, at the time they had MiG-29s, and we would go over to their base and work with those guys. I just remember sitting in the briefing room, and they would have their little study posters up and stuff. I'm what the hell am I looking at here? Oh, that's the attitude indicator. What? So I with the Ukrainians learning if they came off anything Russian, I just wonder if there's a lot of negative transfer there.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'd be curious what the students, how old they are, what's their experience level. I don't know anything about the background of the 12 people we're pushing through.
I guess the good news is going from metric to knots. At least it's not the other way. But Mace, did they ever talk about, because this is one of the things I brought up with Ukraine, right? At Balad, I'm sure it was the same thing at Afghanistan, Bagram, or whatever. The F-16 is a Hoover, right? It'll take rocks, and they're always FOD sweeping, and we had to fly around or taxi with NVG so we could see the little glint on the rock, so we wouldn't suck one up the intake. Ice FOD procedures in cold weather. I mean, it is a temperamental little jet, even though it's awesome. So did they talk about, because obviously the whole European mindset, right, is that the Russian horde's coming over, we're gonna have to take off from roads and we're gonna have to make our own runways and stuff like that. Did they ever specifically talk about how to employ the F-16 in that kind of environment?
We never got into that, but now that you say that, I'm like, that's going to be a deal. Like the amount of FOD sweeping that we do, and we still have engines that get damaged by little rocks. Like that is a thing they're going to for sure have to deal with.
Yeah, because that's the first thing that came to my mind when they were like, yeah, it's going to work. But okay, you can't just take it off on a highway.
No, that end scene of Top Gun, not going to work.
I love it.
I mean, you could try, but yeah, okay. So that's interesting, though, is from the article, at least it's progressing forward, and they're going to get pilots. And once they have trained and qualified pilots, they can start moving aircraft in the theater. But we can see here it's been 2 years. This has not been a fast process. This has not been something overnight. And I don't think once they even get in theater, it's going to be like overnight, we won the war because, in the third act, the hero showed up. It's still going to be a grind.
Yep, for sure.
But okay, Gonky, I think we got two more. Doug, you have the record wins.
Record wins, yeah. So here, airliner is going supersonic. So they talked about memory escapes me, but basically, usually in the wintertime, out of the west, you get some pretty strong winds, and they had some days where the winds were 200 plus knots. So it talks about airliners flying east, a particular flight that landed 45 minutes early. So they're doing like 800 something miles per hour across the ground, which is how the airliner goes supersonic without really going supersonic. The whole article talks about going east, but then I wonder about the poor souls who are going west. They didn't talk about they didn't talk about
dollars for DME, Gonky. You get paid by the minute.
It's like, well, we were going to be nonstop, but we're going to have to stop in like Greenland or Iceland.
That's a real thing. Yeah.
Oh, I know. So, I've seen I flew last week, and we had 180 knots out of the west. Now, granted, we were going like north, so it was a crosswind, right? But in the wintertime, you'll see these strong winds, and man, if you're going east and you can get up in there in the jet stream, it'll definitely shave off your flight time. And I think was that Doug, the British Airways 74 set a record for a subsonic transatlantic flight, 825 miles per hour. That's fast. So yeah, it's kind of a fun article. Like I said, it's great if you're going east, not so good if you're going west.
I just remember in pilot training the whole ICE-T thing, right? Indicated, calibrated, equivalent, true. Yeah, it's got we don't fly off of ground speed. It's great to make an article, but I think people are like, an airliner went supersonic, because I've seen this in comments and stuff. But the airliner flies relative to the wind, and this is going to piss off the flat Earth people. But we fly relative to the sky, not the earth. That's why we don't dip the nose or any of that other nonsense. So when the winds are high, it's not, the airplane does not change its indicated or calibrated or true being for what you're actually using up at the Mach numbers there. But that's not changing. It's just how fast you're going across the ground, which is round. It's the round Earth that's there's nothing flat.
Here comes the hate mail.
Yes.
It gets Gonky some clicks. It'll be fine.
It's harder to put the chemtrails out, but continue.
The Thunderbirds do that.
Yeah, that's right.
The chemtrails are passing you.
That's right.
Yeah. But you brought up a good point, Gonky. What happens if you're like in a C-130 and you've got a 269 knot headwind?
That's correct. I mentioned this to you yesterday. If I was in a C-130 headed west, I'd be going backwards.
How do you get there?
You take the long way.
You toboggan
the long way, dude.
You just go the other way.
Yeah. Pick a different altitude.
Mace, what's the fastest you've ever flown?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was probably in Japan, because we couldn't break the Mach on the team, right? Low altitude, lots of people around. So it's probably like 1.5, being red air.
Yeah.
I don't want to get close to the limit of the jet. Jet's old and no thanks.
I tried. I tried the Gonky method of bullseyeing the ground.
Doesn't work.
From 50,000 feet, and that does not work.
No.
So all you kids at home in DCS or pilot training or wherever you're going to try this, please don't try it at pilot training. I'm just kidding. Please don't try. I keep remembering people actually do watch this show. If you bullseye it, you're going to hit the indicated number before you actually hit the Mach number. So when I did it, I went up to, because it's like the first, you never have a solo F-16 when you're in an operational squadron. Like it never happens.
Yeah,
at least back then it didn't. It might happen now because they can't get that many jets airborne. But you never had this opportunity. And the one time I did, I was like, okay, I got to go to Mach 1.2, get a climb profile going. I go at 50,000 feet, and then I'll just push the nose over because I know if I unload the airplane, it's gonna go faster. Well, I did that, but I pushed the nose to like 45, 50 degrees nose low in full afterburner, and I got to 1.86 just as it hit 800 knots as I was blitzing through 30,000 feet. I'm like, okay, God, I don't want to overspeed this thing. But it was so funny when I checked out of the airspace. It was in Whiskey 465, and the Miami Center controller, she's like, Mako 11, question. I go ahead. Yeah. How fast were you going? And I was like, Mach 1.86. And she's like, that looked fun. Yeah. Because I guess they're just watching you.
Yeah, they're probably
in the airspace.
Right?
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, that's my story I've told a few times. But cool. Gonky, any more on that one?
1.55 for me, doing red air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the time to do it.
Yep.
A couple from the audience, and we'll get to our mental health minute and voicemails and wrap this up. Mace, I'm sorry for keeping you so late, although it's evening there for you.
Yeah, my husband's texting me. He's like, what are we having for dinner?
Oh, God. So we do have to hurry. Okay. Johnny says, we kicked ET's butt in Independence Day using Morse code. Russia is nothing.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Bob says, new business venture, Mover and Gonky, space janitors. You're welcome. Only if we can be the $15 million idea. Ethor says, Mace, if I remember right, in one of your previous interviews, you were in a seed squadron, weren't you?
Yep, in Japan.
Most important thing, did she call Mayday? I don't know.
The
The green Cessna.
Maybe that's why
sure,
she was
you can
mad.
find out.
That reporter was like, you didn't Mayday 3 times, and she stormed off. MJ says, Gonky, you're right. Friendly fire. We're going to see a lot more of this, especially in this kind of theater with hugely organic troop movements. Even during scripted extras in the 90s, I was lit up by friendlies multiple times. It happens.
It does, yeah. Thanks,
RE, my previous comment about what happens when the satellites go down, friendly fire incidents will increase. Yeah.
Yep.
The MP. And then Garrett says, great to have you on the show, Mace. I'm taking the ASTB on Thursday, and I'm kind of nervous. Any advice? Also, Mace, if you were to join a foreign demo team, which nation?
Italy has a pretty cool demo team. I also like wine and pasta. So
talk with your hands.
Mace, what do they fly?
I don't even know what they have.
Is it
she doesn't care.
Glory?
As long as it's Italian, she didn't.
They have that cool colored smoke.
Their name is the most fun to say too.
It is.
Friccicolori.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Prepare until like 24 hours prior and then stop and just get your head right. Don't be cramming until 2 a.m. before a test. That's not a good strategy.
Yeah.
It's like the same for check rides, right? Like you're as ready as you're going to be. Don't freak yourself out.
Gonky doesn't prepare.
False.
He's already where he's going to be. All right. Quick voice messages. We got one for Mace. Be ready, Mace.
Oh, boy.
Hi, Mover and Grunky. It's Joe, Afgeek Joe here. Big fan of the show, especially because you guys talk about DCS. Now, I understand the myth, the legend, the rock star, the Super Viper pilot. Major Mace is going to be on this Monday, and it's really going to be a rad show with one of the world's best Viper pilots in Major Mace up there, who could put that Viper exactly where she wanted it. Major, you should ask Major Base, who's arguably the world's second best fighter pilot after Major Bo. Maybe you and Mover should have a 2v2 tournament where the winners of a DCS tournament get to dogfight both Mace and Mover, which are arguably the 2 world's best Viper pilots. Just a thought. Big fan of DCS. Big fan of Major Mace.
Well,
She's speechless. She has nothing to say.
I don't know where to start.
well, you can always start with you being the greatest fighter pilot. That's always a nice place to
What's
start.
this Bayo?
second-
What's the Bayo
second-
beef?
Bayo. I don't know. She's F-35 demo pilot.
I know who she is, but you guys
Yeah.
are y'all beefing? Is that what's
No.
happening here? Are we
Not at all.
announcing a beef on the?
Definitely not. Bayo's awesome. It sounded like he said BO, and I was like, that would be a crappy call sign. This is my wingman BO. Yeah, we know why.
Very Navy-ish.
No, Bayo is great. I'm just hung up on the DCS part because I don't know how to DCS.
Watch your words.
Don't cancel me.
It's just like flying a real Viper.
God.
Do DCS Viper pilots G-strain in their chairs?
I do. Just for
It's a G-string getting out of the chair, if that's what you mean.
I tell you, it'll hurt your neck just as much as the real thing, right,
That's
Gonky?
true. Well, if you do 5 hours straight, yes.
Correct.
20 minutes, no.
Have you DCS'd on Go pills?
We should, dude. Awesome.
We should do it on the no-go pills and see what happens.
Oh,
Combo.
Honestly, dude, we're so bad at it that people think we're not real fighter pilots anyway. So
well, so
I don't think
Mace,
we need to make ourselves worse.
so he, what he was saying, have a tournament and the winner's going to fight you guys being the world's greatest F-16 pilots. But Mover kind of Mover and I kind of already did this, right? Early on, Mover had a tournament. The winner got to fight you, a real Viper pilot, and then runner-up got to fight me, a real Hornet pilot. And Mace, I cannot remember the guy I fought. It was a brutal beatdown. Like I got crushed. Like I had, it's a game, right?
Specific set of skills.
Well,
Yeah.
so listen, Mace, if we do another tournament, we usually do them for charity.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
formally inviting you to come be one of our commentators. And what we do is we talk trash.
It is
about
fun.
DCS.
Oh, I'll commentate. That would be
It's
fun.
fun.
That's what we'll do. Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
that. That's fine. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for the message. You're the first, Mace. You are the first, I think, to get except Wags maybe, and that's DCS as well, to get a direct voice message.
Thank
So
you,
good
Joe.
job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. I have met Joe. He's a big fan.
Awesome.
Hey, Mover and Gonky.
This
Huge
is from.
fan. Appreciate
I have
all
no
that you
idea.
guys do.
I didn't pay attention.
I had an idea for a mental health minute. I work in sales, which is why I can't watch live most weeks, unfortunately. But in sales, you always have to change your pitch to what's going on, and I've watched people just absolutely destroy themselves mentally because they come up with one small idea that they think will help, and they tear down everything they've been developing over time, and they start with something new, and they do this over and over, and it never works. You see the same thing in management, where new management comes in and they tear down the whole system and build something else new. Even with our military branches trying to do same things with new incentive programs and things like that, where I usually find it better to take what was good and build upon it. Buildings, skyscrapers can't be built if you constantly destroy them because you don't like one thing. Use it if you want to. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Okay. I mean, that's good.
Valid.
Yeah, it's all valid. But that's a good segue. We'll save that one for another time. We'll wrap this up with our own mental health minute because we specifically talked about dealing with haters, and we've kind of sprinkled it through the show because we're not very good at it. I'm not very good at it. Gonky's great at it. I am terrible at it. So if you're ever in the public eye, and I think this applies to anybody that does any social media at all, if you are even still, I mean, even in a squadron or in a group setting, you're always going to have a certain number of people that just don't like what you're doing, and they're going to try to tear you down, regardless of whether it's merit-based or if it's just nonsense. Even if you're doing something cool, like a therapy dog with a canine, somebody's going to be mad at you. And so the mental health minute today is on how to deal with haters. And Mace, you and I have talked about this in depth because we're always sharing what angry people say about relatively benign topics. And I think you've experienced that a lot. How do you deal with that?
Sometimes well and sometimes not. I think the last time I was on, we talked about it in relation to the Top Gun post I did and how angry people were. The ones that are just like obviously trolls, that are just like, worst pilot ever. Go back to the kitchen. Can you parallel park? Like, like the kind of like what the little one-liners, and then you look at their profile, it's like one follower, and like it's like hidden. I just delete those. I delete them and block that person, and it annoys me for a second, then I just whatever. But it's the people that write like well-written diatribes about things that get me more pissed off, because they're actually like real people, and they actually think these things, right? I guess the most recent thing that I got hate for is I made this very great meme of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce when the Chiefs won the game that was going to take them to the Super Bowl, where she's whispering in his ear, and I put the caption, "The Thunderbirds are going to do a flyover for you," because the Thunderbirds did the Super Bowl flyover. I thought it was clever and right on brand for my aviation loving audience. People got so mad. They thought I was part of a psyop, and that I was bringing disgrace to the Thunderbird name.
I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that one.
That meme. Anyway, so those are kind of dumb, and they whatever. When people get really personal, those I posted screenshots of in my stories because they were funny, and actually enjoyed replying to them because they were just such a silly thing to get mad about. It's walking the line between ignoring them and doing the delete block thing, and like, is that always the best option for your mental health? Is that always the healthiest option? Sometimes I find it is more helpful to stand up to the person and show them that they can't just talk to me like that, and they can't roll into my page that I work really hard on to be glass half full and just shit on it. And so I will screenshot them with their name and everything, put it in my stories. And a lot of people's accounts have gotten shut down because I have those loyal followers that will roll in and report them and shut their Instagram down for a bit. And, sometimes that's satisfying. So I don't have a good solution for it. It's whatever works for you. But it used to really bother me, and it would bother me for days afterwards, especially when people would get into like extended engagement where they would comment again and again. I had a guy, I think it was after I was on here the first time, who came in and said that he didn't care what I had to say because I was a quitter, because I had left the Air Force prior to 20 years.
I remember that one.
And that was a waste of a pilot training spot and a fighter jet, this coveted fighter jet spot. I was a waste of it because I didn't stay for 20 years. And that he literally said, there were all of these qualified men lined up that wanted that spot, and you took it from them. I was like, okay, now we can see what the real problem is. But stuff like that is just so over the top that I will blast those people in my stories and be like, hello, whoever this person works for, look at what they think about the world.
Yeah. Yeah. The tough one, I think I always, are the ones that get personal. Like, well, first off, if it's somebody that's in the field, because it's easy when it's some dumbass know nothing, you're like, whatever. But when it's actually another fighter pilot, another pilot, somebody that's got some level of credibility, those are the ones you kind of internalize, because you're like, these are, my peers. And for whatever reason, they believe that. But then some of them are just nonsensical.
Right.
Gonky, we did the retiree return, the VRAD thing last week. And there were comments like, you guys didn't get the call to come back. It's like, dude, we're still in. Like, where are we going? You're like, we can't be in any harder. Like,
I can't pull over anymore.
Right.
What else do you want me to do? Like, what are you doing on your couch? And those you just want to argue with because they're so stupid. You're like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you're wrong.
Right. You're wrong. And I need to tell you that. And then, of course, there's the, you're washed up has been because, you're out or whatever. You couldn't hack it. Those kind of aggravate to a certain degree. But I think the important thing is I'm going to do the standard thing I do, which is not take my own advice. When you get into a situation like this, you have to compartmentalize it like we do everything else, right? Because sometimes our brains are wired to take in information, process that information, and then decide what's a threat and what's not. And when we see this on a screen, we internalize it because our brain's going, that's a threat. That's a threat to my own mental well-being, and I need to address it, or I need to make that threat go away. And usually ignoring a threat doesn't work. I mean, we've been taught that our entire lives. We're type A personalities, and you can't just turn that off. But the reality is, as Gonky, I'm sure when he gets, I'm taking his thunder because he's going to say whatever Mover just said. But as he will attest, sometimes you do have to be that mongoloid. You have to be the guy that has no technological skill and just go, I'm just not going to listen to it, because if you do, you're going to spend your time chasing ghosts. You're going to spend your time chasing stupid people. And I catch myself spending an inordinate amount of time reading comments. And then you don't focus on the ones that are like, hey, you did something good with your mental health minute. You did something good. I'm going to be a fighter pilot now because of you. You don't focus on that. You focus on you're a washed up has-been that couldn't hack it, or, some little thing that just tees off, just sends you to the next level, and you want to fight. Like I had one guy, and because some of them are stupid, I flew with the Harrison County Sheriff's Office as a video. I did a video with their helicopter people. I did a great interview with both of their, or two of their pilots. And I had a guy following me around on every video, calling, because I'm also a deputy with the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. Again, Harrison, St. Tammany. I don't work for Harrison. I'm a reserve volunteer for St. Tammany. And he was calling me a corrupt deputy because I worked for Harris County, which is in Texas. I've never been to Harris County, Texas as a deputy. I've driven through it, but I've never done that. But it's just like they get it in their head, but it's a one-way door. You'll find responding to these people, it does nothing, because they'll never come back, because they're drive-by. It's a drive-by this, it's a drive-by that. And they fire and forget. And meanwhile, you're like, God, how do I tell this idiot to stop? And I think for our own sanity, we have to figure out a way to just go, you know what, it's chaff. I'm going to ignore it. And I'm going to keep doing what I do, because the minute you stop being that positive person, that glass half full, your brand is the minute that they win, because they are trying to tear you down to their level. They are trying to take you from, because it's always, a good friend of mine who's probably watching this says it's always jealousy, right? They see you up here. They know they can't get there. So they want to drag you down. Yeah. They want to take you from where they think you are, even though we as humble fighter pilots go, well, we're not there. I don't deserve that. It's the imposter syndrome, right? Because the imposter syndrome that you talk about a lot is always nagging at us, telling us we don't deserve to be here. And anytime we see somebody validate that, we try to bring ourselves down to it to agree with them. But the reality is we're not there. You're not there. You've done a lot, and it's acknowledging your own accomplishments to bring yourself back to where you should be, not to where they think you are. And I'm going to bring my pitch back around before Gonky says, everything Mover just said. If you're struggling with something, 988 mental health professionals within your squadron or within your community. If you got a DPH in your squadron, military one source, these are all good techniques or outlets to talk about this stuff with other people, because, you don't have to do this alone. You and I don't have to do this alone. We don't have to struggle with this one thing by ourselves, because I guarantee you we're not the only ones that deal with it. So I think anytime you're in this fight, get a wingman. And, those that are on the verge of taking it a permanent solution to a temporary problem, please talk to somebody, law enforcement, even if you have to, because we'd rather see you survive. And I'm not talking to you, Mace, I'm talking to everybody, but, we'd rather see you succeed than to internalize this and make it something much worse than it actually is. Gonky, what do you got?
Same goes for me, double. Just kidding. That's a movie line.
Reverse Uno.
No, I mean, dude, okay, yeah, you hit all the great points. I will reiterate, because I think other than Doug, who might just be a year older than me, but I'm the older of the three faces on here. And just my generation, I guess I'm not much, I don't spend a lot of time online, which I guess in that case, ignorance is bliss, but that doesn't mean the bullying is happening. And, whether it's to my face or it's online, I've always found that people that are super critical of anything I'm doing, they're not doing much of anything themselves. Yep. And, if you can look at that and be like, okay, if you're going to be, not that I'm a trendsetter, but if you're going to go out there and try to live an exceptional life, do things that most people don't do, be a Thunderbird, fly fighter jets, promote the military on YouTube, right? These are things that a lot of people don't do. you're going to get pushback from people who are jealous of you, you know, who are afraid to step out of their comfort zone and do anything, you know. So I mean, you can play the mental game of, you know, reveling in the fact that, hey, you know, I may be on the right path here. A lot of times, you know, if you're getting criticism from, you know, people that, you know, they're like your family and stuff, a lot of times, you know, they're just trying to keep you from getting hurt. But even, you know, stuff like that, you have to temper it with, you know, what it is you're actually doing. So, you know, how do I deal with haters? Most of the time I just delete them. I mean, you know, Mover and I talk a lot about the comments we get on videos, and you know, his channel is much larger than mine, so he gets a lot more hate. But I've found that as my channel has gotten larger, I get a lot more hate. And occasionally I scroll through the comments and I see it. And it always astounds me that people will take 10, 15, like May said, they'll take like 10, 15 minutes out of their day to type out a well thought out, hateful comment about something that you did to, you know, as a creativity, or, you know, as a promotion or something. And it always blows my mind. I'm like, man, I don't have that kind of time, you know, so,
or urge to do it.
Or urge. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like, you know, the old adage of like, if you're not going to say anything good, don't say it at all. Right. So, you know, in modern times, social media is a big thing. You know, we've all seen, you know, amongst kids, it's even more of a thing, right? So, I mean, there's kids that are ending their lives over, you know, being bullied on social media, you know, all the hate and stuff. So, like Mover said, you know, don't go it alone. And I think part of the way that, you know, he deals with a lot of this is, you know, I get to be his wingman, and it helps.
Gonky,
you know?
Why are they saying mean things about me?
You're not as old as you look, I promise.
Oh, dude. I was like, why are you coloring your hair? I'm not coloring my hair. This is the way it always looks.
Right. But, you know, get some, you know, like, you know, get a wingman. And I don't know. That's how I deal with it, is I put it into perspective. And if you want to be like everybody else, just do what everybody else is doing and be nice and safe, and nobody will ever say anything bad about you, you know. But I say, you know, live exciting. So that's all I got. Doug, you're the expert.
You keep saying
bullying.
You are, dude.
Gonky's the expert on bullying.
For the record,
expert.
I look 30% older than Gonky. I may only be a couple of years. I get written evaluations of everything I do every 8 to 16 weeks, and I've been in that business for 30 years now. When it first started, you know, I really took it really seriously, and like you guys are saying, it was really easy to emphasize the good over the bad. But we use it in our promotion workups. I'm sorry, emphasize the bad over the good. We use it in our promotion workups, and so when I came to my first promotion, I did a statistical analysis, because that's how I cope. And, you know, it was like 95% positive. And after that, I just never looked back.
Yeah.
Except every once in a while, I'll make an example of somebody. I love Mace's strategy. Like,
yeah.
You're not going to believe what this guy said about me last semester.
Yeah. Well, I think because you two have each other, that, you know, you're doing this brand together, and so you get to like be like, did you see what that idiot said? Like, you get to laugh, you know. And so that the whole wingman thing, being able to take a screenshot of it and share it on my stories, and then get all of these messages from people, I get inundated, and I'm just like, and they're all good, right? It's all like, who's that idiot? Don't listen to him, blah blah blah, you're doing awesome things, I appreciate you. And you just get this feel good folder that gets filled up. And so some of it is to blast the person for revenge, I guess, but also some of it is the immediate huge influx of positive feedback that I get. That's like, okay, I am doing a lot of good. I don't need to let this negativity bias affect, you know, how I put myself out there. And then I also have a friend that I was on the Thunderbirds with that I will screenshot. She's not on social media at all. And so I will screenshot the really over the top comments, and every time I send them to her, she just replies in all caps, the audacity. And it just, it's fun. Like, it's fun to have that. We like joke about it. She'll be like, what's their profile look like? Who is this dumb?
See, Mace has her own Gonky.
You find,
Listen,
get your Gonky.
You're always welcome here.
Can we make shirts that say that? Get your Gonky.
Get your,
yeah. We welcome you.
I want 10%.
With open arms to be a part of our whatever we are. You can always rely on us.
I love it.
So don't ever feel like you're alone, Mace, because we've got you.
No, I appreciate it. And I
Yeah,
think
good-
that's like
good work.
a good thing you guys bring up though, because people can feel super alone when they're, especially like teenagers, young adults, they're at home in their bedroom by themselves on their phone, and they're just getting all this hate rolling in, especially for kids, teenagers who it comes from people at school, like peers.
Yeah.
And it can go viral, and they could be inundated by all of these people at once that, like, it's just kids are mean.
Yeah.
And that's a tough time anyway.
They don't get better as adults.
No, they just get better at hiding it.
Especially in the fighter community. Oh,
Maybe
God.
your parish.
Yeah. All right. Well, great words. Thank you for that. Get through these, and great podcast. Cletus is next. I don't know. People think I know people more than I do. I don't know anybody. I just happen upon no go pills. That's why you sound slurred and drunk. Damn it, he's on to us. Plexi says it's a sim, Gonky.
Thanks, Flexi. Sorry.
Laura says real fighter pilots playing DCS seems like real surgeons playing Operation. Oof.
That's
See?
true. That's
There's
true.
the hate mail. Women don't like DCS, I guess. Gonky's wife, Mace, Laura.
That's true. My wife, no.
Please have Mace back. Charles says, please have Mace back. Mover and Gonky. It's been a real pleasure seeing her on the show. I agree. Janitor is back. Mace, love and enjoy your inspirational Instagram posts. They really get me thinking. Hate that you usually follow that up with you doing 1,000 pull-ups while I'm eating a cupcake.
I love cupcakes and ice cream and sweets in general. So, I have a fit persona I need to put out to the world, but I eat all the sweets.
There's
Secrets out.
We have somebody at our new wing that bakes, right,
Oh,
Gonky? She
dangerous.
does cupcakes for the wing.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes.
Luke says, here I am taking all this in, marveling at the sheer incredible abilities of all three of you. Thanks for the conversation. Greetings from Oregon. He also says, Mover, please give Luna a pat for her. She hasn't shown up yet.
She's
The Luna cam is, she's like, you know what? She's been mad.
Monday. I'm out of here.
Kate Little Wolf says, yes, Mover, and something about the written word in general, even in books, for some of us is more deeply internalized. 100%. Laura says, haters are just people who are too lazy to do anything constructive with their seething jealousy. Gunny says, if that question, can you parallel park, ever comes up again, just ask him, can you barrel roll your car? Just a silly thing to ask.
It is.
Blake says, I know positivity is often backlogged in social media, but I love that I can show my nieces, look at what Mace has done. You can too. It doesn't have to be a fighter pilot. Can do what you put work into. Hell yeah. See?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Michael says, just remember, for every hater out there, there are 10 more people who support and love you, guys and gals. Kate says, Mace, what is your social media address again?
Oh, yes. Instagram. Like, what's my Instagram handle?
Yeah, what's your gram?
Mace, just my call sign, _, my last name, Curran, Curran. Bring me the followers. Come on, Mover.
You bring me your followers.
You have one job, Mover. One.
Well,
job.
Okay. Yeah.
I know Instagram's not your preferred platform.
I just am not good at it. I don't know what to take pictures of.
It's a lot of work.
I've got a dog Instagram, but even that we don't post a lot. Joe says, it's my personal hope, as always, even as one sub month 410, that by my support I raise you up. Why tear someone down?
Good question.
People do. Bob says, social media haters are terrible, but interesting. I've been trying to understand this phenomenon since it began, unprecedented in human history.
Yep.
There you go.
Our brains struggle with it.
And that's it. Mace, you may now
eat your dinner.
Yeah, I don't know what they had.
Yeah.
I told them to go on without me, so they probably ordered takeout when I had stuff to make.
If it's from Outback, make sure they send you the ranch.
It's definitely not from Outback.
So we you're too fancy for that. We went to Outback, 2 drills ago, Gonky?
Yeah, 2 months ago, yeah.
I ordered a plate of cheese fries for the table.
He just kept ordering more and more ranch.
No, I didn't. Dude,
Yes, you did.
So I was like, hey, can we get an extra? Because usually they only bring the one out. Well, then the one guy came out with like a bowl of ranch, and then somebody else came out with a bucket of ranch. And by the end, I had all the ranch from the entire restaurant.
Yeah.
And
We,
Gonky,
we used like a tablespoon of it. I was like, we're gonna do this ranch.
I was gonna say this has to be a quality. It's from 2 months ago, and you're still talking about the ranch. So
Yeah.
were they just brought you a lot, or were the servers playing a joke on you?
I
That's a
don't
good
care. I
point.
got all the ranch.
Yeah.
It
It
doesn't
was
matter
weird.
because then I went and ordered. I'm like, it's my birthday. I'm gonna order DoorDash. I like cheese fries from Outback and ranch, and they gave me cheese fries with no ranch.
Because they were out.
The humanity.
Right.
Different restaurant.
Supply
Gonky.
chain issues.
It's
You wipe
different.
them out.
They're 100 miles apart.
It was that big of a dent in the supply, my friend.
Yeah, they called up all of the regional
Yeah.
Outbacks. You guys
Got
out?
blacklisted from the ranch.
That was the ranch.
Just trying to eat some authentic Margot Robbie food, and nothing.
Nope.
That
for
sounds
you.
delicious. No.
Margot Robbie or the food. Yeah. Outback. Make it happen. Okay. Well, hey, check out Upside Down Dreams.
Yes.
What's your call sign about the same time the Ukrainians start flying F-16s?
Yep. Open for pre-order. Right,
Open
meow.
for pre-order right meow. Make sure that happens. Mace, as always,
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on,
fun.
Mace. Appreciate it.
For sure.
It was
I've
fun.
kind of appreciated you not just asking me questions about myself, but just this like whack-a-mole of topics. I enjoyed that.
We
Oh,
don't do
yeah.
that here.
Makes
We
it
already
interesting.
did that. No, we already did that the one time. Once you get that out the way, now we're just
We
hanging
need
out.
to use whack-a-mole of topics as a banner from now on.
That's right. Just a smattering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smattering. That's a good word.
It's just enough to make people mad at us. That's all we do.
Pretty much.
Check.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Gonky,
No.
as always, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight.
Talk to you
Appreciate
next
it.
week.
Heck yeah. Everybody have a good evening. Good week.
Doug, thank you, sir.
You bet.
Nothing. All right. All right.
I was
See you guys.
a little slow on the button.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.